Chapter 1285. Under the ancient pine, on the stone board, the chess game did not change. However, a trace of anger flashed in the depths of the Eastern Palace Lord's eyes. Who was it that touched my chess piece? Previously, he had already had his suspicions. He had always felt that the entire chess game was going too smoothly. With Titan Yu, Fei Wenli, the Serpent Demon Empress, and her who was in deep sleep, there was no reason for Tong Tian Tower's side to fall into a situation where they were unable to struggle. No matter what, they would need a fierce battle before they could suppress them. However, the entire chess game had progressed so smoothly that it was frightening. Supreme Jin's act of helping Titan Yu to escape had instead made it look like he was trying to cover something up. Titan Yu was carrying the fate of the Tong Tian Tower on his back. Even if Supreme Jin had not made a move, it would have been impossible for him to kill or capture him so easily. As a chess player, even if Titan Yu lost, he would definitely lose at the last move. And not at the beginning. Titan Yu suddenly disappeared without a trace. The sleeping her was not anxious at all. She watched as Tong Tian Tower collapsed. How was this possible? Also, that snake demon Empress Fei Wenli, who looked down on the world and dared to try to sweep through the heaven realm, was watching Tong Tian Tower fall. How could she be so indifferent and watch with folded arms? If his suspicions were correct, then someone must have secretly moved his chess piece. With the chess talent, one could even control a god-ranked chess piece and all living things in the world. However, if there was an extremely powerful spectator, it was not impossible to secretly move his chess piece while he was setting up the game. However, this kind of spectator was not only stronger than him, there was also more than one of them. Otherwise, they would not have been able to deceive him. Then who was involved? Supreme Jin should be one of them. However, Supreme Jin's power was definitely not enough to deceive him or change his chess game completely. Could it be that the Demon Emperor and the immovable honorable martial artist were also involved? If it was just them, then it would be fine. The most terrifying one was the Honorable Tian Yu of the temple, who had been hiding all this while. If he really did stab him in the back, then it would be troublesome. Furthermore, only the most powerful and most intelligent Honorable Tian Yu of the temple would be able to secretly move his chess piece while he was watching. Only then would he be able to hide it from him. The problem was, there was no benefit for the Honorable Tian Yu of the temple to do this. Tian Yu wanted Tong Tian Tower to fall more than anyone else. There was no reason for him to ruin his plans before Skysplit Tower was destroyed. He should have given him a helping hand first, and then waited until Skysplit Tower was certain to fall into oblivion and be completely destroyed. It wouldn't be too late to act then. Why would he be so impatient to act now? This was inexcusable. No, not the heavenly chariot. Could it be that the spectator was the peerless Emperor Wu Shuang who had personally made a promise to him? However, peerless Emperor Wu Shuang was a god-level expert who kept his promises. His words represented his will, and any promise he made was an ironclad fact. Moreover, he had enough reasons to destroy the Tower of Babel, so it was even more impossible for him to interfere with his own game. If it wasn't the two of them, then who was it? In this world, who else had such power? Could it be cleverly hidden from his eyes? I can become invisible in my Go talent? Was it Fei Wenli, the Snake Demon Empress, or her who was in a deep sleep? They might also have such strength, but they were enemies, so it was impossible for them to be hidden spectators. Moreover, the enemy had maliciously moved his game, so it was impossible for his Go talent to not notice. Supreme Jin, Demon Emperor, and Ji Zun, they did not deceive his strength, so who was the real spectator? In the Tower of Babel, who else was there that he had overlooked? Who else was there? Who had the mysterious wisdom to disrupt the game without him noticing? The Eastern Palace Lord fell into deep thought. Through the defeat of the 18 divine generals and the repeated interceptions of 2 Wan from the Sky Swallowing clan, he had already captured a trace of danger. Under his Go talent, there was an invisible person who could transcend the chessboard of heaven and earth, who could ignore the rules of everything as chess, and mysteriously hide in a certain place. While quietly watching the game, he stretched out his transparent fingers and constantly messed up his game. The strength and wisdom of this invisible person was very likely to be an existence that was not inferior to him. Moreover, no one knew whether it was himself, the deity temple's supreme Tianyu, or even all the conquerors of the heaven realm. They were all deceived. In the Tower of Babel, there was actually such an unknown but extremely intelligent guardian? Was this person him or her? What kind of existence was he or she? I will definitely find you. In the eyes of the Eastern Palace Lord, a trace of fanaticism appeared, as if he had met his match. Originally, the winning situation was already in chaos, but the fighting spirit in his heart was burning 1,000 times. Very good, only this kind of battle is interesting, and only this kind of you is worthy of me. Dong Feng going all out. The you hiding behind Titan you is actually playing chess with me, right? The real opponent is you, and not the Titan you that you pushed out to become everyone's target, right? Then, who could you be? Dong Feng muttered to himself. He felt that his whole body was full of strength. That kind of lonely laziness of an expert was inspired by the invisible enemy, and his fighting spirit was burning. Nervousness, fear, trembling and other negative emotions once again surged into his heart, transforming into an excited, fighting spirit. The shadow of defeat that had not appeared in 10,000 years quickly expanded. Fog in the unknown pervaded the entire chess game. Under this kind of unprecedented challenge, the Eastern Palace Lord felt excited instead. This kind of opponent was what he desired the most in his life. Only this kind of competition, could be counted as the true radiance of a martial artist's wisdom. The Eastern Palace Lord felt that there was no need to pay attention to the Titan you that he had been bitterly searching for and prepared to use all sorts of methods to dig out. Paying too much attention to him would instead fall into his trap. This brat was not even god level. His growth was already very suspicious. There were simply too many miracles and coincidences, so many that it was like a heaven-defying existence. This was completely illogical. According to the current situation, Titan Yu, that heaven-defying abnormal genius, was most likely a puppet, pushed out by the true guardian of Tong Tian Tower who was hiding behind him. Titan Yu was pushed to the front. He became the target of everyone's attacks, attracting all the firepower. And the hidden guardian of Tong Tian Tower could secretly use this kind of negligence that no one knew about to display his miraculous intelligence and control the entire situation. Heaven's Stairway Million Step. Beside Lake Ming. Because of the Eastern Palace Lord's will being shifted, Yu Yang, who had been invisibly drawn in by his chess talent, was finally freed. Although Yu Yang possessed an indomitable sovereign's will that was as immovable as a mountain, his realm was still below the divine level. He was still unable to completely disregard all the laws in the world, especially the unique laws that the Eastern Palace Master had condensed under his chess-playing talent. His chess talent could not affect Yu Yang's freedom, but Yu Yang was not completely free either. The more focused the Eastern Palace Lord was, the greater the draw. The greater the draw, the higher the possibility of being discovered by him in the end. However, in that instant, the Eastern Palace Lord inexplicably shifted his will. Yu Yang instantly felt that his body and mind were fine, falling into a state of true freedom. He did not know what Shui Wuxia and Princess Sisai and the others did to make the Eastern Palace Lord unable to care about him, but he was sure that they had definitely put in a lot of effort. Perhaps it was not only them, there were also many others, such as Fatty Hai Yikong and the other teammates, or the old fox, Elder Nangong and the other seniors, who had sacrificed a lot and put in a lot of effort. The Eastern Palace Lord had given up on him. Yu Yang did not know how everyone did it, but he knew that he had to seize the time to level up. While the Eastern Palace Lord had recovered, he had to comprehend and level up to an existence that would make the Eastern Palace Lord and all the Heaven Realm invaders despair. No matter what, he had to grasp the 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power. As long as he had that kind of power, his chess talent could be broken, the danger of Tong Tian Tower could be solved, everyone's fate could be reversed, and the final victory could be easily obtained. Idiot, there's not much time, calm your mind. Ji Zun found that this kid's mind was floating, almost out of the state of cultivation. She hurriedly scolded him, warning him. It was because of everyone's efforts that they had worked so hard to exchange for freedom and relief, so they did not want to waste a single minute or second. One must know that within 3 days, if they could not grasp the 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power, then all their previous efforts would be wasted, and everyone's efforts would be in vain. Yes. Yu Yang hurriedly calmed his consciousness and returned to his best state of comprehension. How could he not know the importance of the fate he was carrying? He had only obtained relief. He couldn't help but rejoice for it. He was also touched by everyone's efforts. Ji Zun was afraid that his mind would change again, so she took the initiative to hug his body. Her arms crossed and coiled upwards, her 2 palms gently stacked on the back of his head, and her clear forehead silently pressed against his forehead. She completely let go of all restraints, without reservation, without any secrets. She transmitted all the wisdom that she had cultivated and comprehended in her life to him. And her mind was also inseparably blended with him. In order to assist Yu Yang to improve, in order to let him control his fate in 3 days, and achieve the future, Ji Zun was willing to give everything for him, give everything and not hold anything back. The holy grimoire of the 2 rose almost at the same time. Like the Master, the 2 holy grimoire touched each other. Whether it was the shield, the will, or even the golden pillar of light that erupted into the sky, they were perfectly intertwined and fused together. An unprecedented phenomenon, an existence more incredible than a miracle, appeared above the heads of Yu Yang and Ji Zun at this moment. Yu Yang and Ji Zun both had secret guardian war beasts that were not revealed to the outside world, such as Yu Yang's phantom. Now, all of them came out voluntarily without being summoned. They joined the Master's comprehension. The phantom turned into millions of doppelgangers and reassembled into a shadow giant or an even taller and more mysterious existence. In the end, all of them fused into Yu Yang's body and strengthened him. On the other side, a dazzling divine light illuminated the entire heaven and earth. The world tree, which was indomitable between the heavens and the earth, resonated with the appearance of this guardian beast. The guardian war beast that had never been shown in front of others, Ji Zun poured all the insights she had gained from countless times of cultivation in her life into her. Finally, it appeared for the first time. That year, because of the guidance of the Dreamer's Heaven secret, Ji Zun had chosen the most difficult path of cultivation. She had poured all of her strength into her guardian beast and cultivated again and again. Even in the most difficult times, when she was under the threat of death, she had never used the power of her guardian beast. In this kind of countless recultivation, in this kind of countless hardships to improve herself, Ji Zun was no longer constrained by the initial demigod. Step by step, she had comprehended her own future. At the same time, her guardian warbeast also became extremely powerful because of Ji Zun's countless infusions. Beyond demigods, beyond divine beasts, and even beyond the higher divine level. It made her who she was today. A divine-level guardian warbeast that was exactly the same as the Master in both image and will, the appearance of which made the world overshadowed. Jiao Yu Goddess. Chapter 1286. Kaboom! The ball of starlight in the sky was struck down by the divine power for the 100th time, and smashed into the ground. Countless starlight fragments splashed everywhere, and the earth-shattering shock wave once again swept across the entire area. What was different from the previous 99 times was that the ball of starlight that had smashed into the ground did not fly up like before around his body. A circle of golden light that looked like a divine shield continuously expanded. He slowly descended. His mountain-like body was actually as light as a feather, and not even a speck of dust could be seen. Although they were both at the divine level, compared to the 20-meter-tall Supreme Indestructible, the originally tall golden giant Tu-Wan was like a tiny golden ant. They could not be compared at all. The Supreme Indestructible, who was extremely visually impactful and psychologically pressuring, had a terrifying 20-meter-tall body. He did not have the bloodline of giants, demons, dragons, or titans. He was actually a human from the heaven realm. He even had a quarter of the bloodline of dwarves. According to the secret information from the heaven realm, the Supreme Indestructible's maternal grandmother was a lowly female dwarf slave. Because of that, the Supreme Indestructible's mother was much shorter than normal humans. Among her 10 sons, other than Supreme Indestructible, none of them were taller than 2 meters. The Supreme Indestructible's terrifying 20-meter-tall body was entirely due to his innate talent. Strong innate skill. A warrior with the strong innate skill is a tenacious warrior who will never fall easily on the battlefield. The owner of this innate skill will have the most tyrannical and powerful body in the world. No matter how heavy the injuries are, they will not fall to the ground weak. Every time they recover from a bloody battle, every time they return from a desperate situation of death, the body of the innate skill's owner will become twice as strong. With such an innate talent, coupled with over 10,000 years of hard work, he finally became the Supreme Indestructible that he was today. In the deep pit, there was a small ball of starlight that had almost disappeared. That was the Night Empress, who had been defeated for the 100th time. The Night Empress also had outstanding innate talent and abilities. Unfortunately, she had only entered the divine level for less than 2 months, and could not display her true potential. As soon as she came out, she encountered a powerful enemy like Supreme Indestructible. Whether it was innate talent or other aspects, Supreme Indestructible was not inferior to her. The only thing that had opened up the gap was the indestructible sovereign, who possessed over 10,000 years of cultivation and thousands of years of experience in fighting various divine-level experts. Zhibu Dao had spent 1,000 years to familiarize himself with his divine power, and another few thousand years to hone his combat skills. Combining his willpower, divine power, and beasts, he had reached the peak of the human level in terms of both attack and defense. This kind of indestructible Zhizun was definitely not someone that a newcomer like the Night Empress who had just reached the god level could defeat. You can't even withstand a single blow. Compared to your ancestor, Princess Starlight, you're still a long way off. Supreme Indestructible looked down at the 100-meter-deep crater and snorted coldly. Even if he defeated the Night Empress, there was not a trace of arrogance or conceit. The expression on his face was one of matter of fact. Whether it was the indestructible supremacy or the undefeatable supremacy and the immovable supremacy who were watching the battle from afar, none of them believed that the Night Empress could turn the tables and win. How could a god-level newcomer, a newbie, challenge the invincible sovereign, who was as steady as a mountain and would never fall in battle? Moreover, even though he knew that it was a lion hunting a rabbit, Supreme Indestructible still fought with all his might. Ecliptic, 10, 12 stars, Constellation Palace. The bottom of the crater wriggled as sand and stones split open. One after another, stars rose up from the ground, from slow to fast. From the first few stars there were more and more of them. It was like a meteor shower, densely packed as they shot into the sky. These disorderly stars, under the guidance of some kind of divine power, they automatically arranged themselves. Slowly, they formed constellations that were exactly the same as the 12 zodiac palaces in the sky. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and other beautiful constellations were born one after another. Every time they were born, the fading starlight at the bottom of the crater grew a little stronger. The Night Empress, who had been heavily injured and was about to reveal her true form, was now hidden in the Milky Way. With the support of the newly formed 12 zodiac palaces, she once again increased her divine power and challenged the god-level ranker, Supreme Indestructible, who was 20 meters tall and had a strong innate talent. The Silent Night clan of the Heaven Stairway is very good at star power. For some clans, star power is indeed a headache. However, star power is completely useless against me. I'm a warrior who walks under the blazing sun. I'm the natural nemesis of you Heaven Stairway martial artists. Whether it's your Silent Night clan, the Bright Moon clan, the 100 Flowers clan, or the Butterfly clan, none of them are a match for me. Especially a newbie like you who has just entered the god level and hasn't even figured out your own characteristic. How much star power can you produce? It's not even worth mentioning. Supreme Indestructible said as he raised one of his arms high. His right palm was like holding up the sky. In the center of his palm, a wave of divine power appeared at an extreme speed. More and more of it gathered. In the end, it turned into a golden sun with a diameter of 100 meters. Under the radiance of the golden sun that had a diameter of 100 meters, the 12 zodiac palaces that the Night Empress had just condensed were overshadowed, and the star power was greatly weakened. Even the silver river around the Night Empress' body was greatly reduced, and could not hide her beautiful figure. I won't deny that if you're given 1,000 or a few hundred years, you'll grow to be very difficult to deal with. Your Heaven Stairway clan's talent and potential are indeed unique advantages that other clans don't have. Unfortunately, no one will give you the chance to grow. Even if I don't kill you, someone else will. No matter how talented you are, you're destined to be unable to grow. Of course, Princess Starlight was like that, and you will be the same today. This is a fate you can't escape from. Don't blame me and don't blame anyone else. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for having the talent and potential that can only exist for a long time. If you were a mediocre clan, a bunch of mortals like ants, we wouldn't even bother to look at you. But you're not. You're the favored ones that even the gods are jealous of. So, there's nothing we can do. Be it the Heaven Realm or the Heaven Realm, we won't allow the emergence of god-level beings beyond our control. We've had enough of the glory of the Heaven Stairway Tower. Its fall is inevitable. The extinction of the Heaven Stairway clan is also inevitable. Supreme Indestructible raised the golden sun energy ball above his head and looked down at the Night Empress in the deep pit. The Heaven Stairway clan will never be extinct. We, Silent Night, Bright Moon, 100 Flowers and Butterfly will never be extinct. The Night Empress' heavenly voice rang out clearly. Are you talking about Titan you? You've entrusted the fate of your clan to him, turning him into a miraculous child that can defy the heavens. This really is a clever method. But there is one point that you have never thought about. That is, Titan you, who carries the fate of your entire clan, and even the fate of the entire Tong Tian Tower. That young man, will he be able to bear it? He's such a young kid, he's not even a divine level, yet you've forced such a heavy burden on his shoulders. Can he really bear it? Even the prison emperor back then didn't have such a hard time. The prison emperor who carried the fate of Tong Tian Tower collapsed, and the conquering empress who tried to conquer the entire heaven realm also failed. But you've ignored all of these, and are still giving Titan you the responsibility of guarding the Heaven Stairway, leading the soaring dragon continent, reviving the Tong Tian Tower and fighting against the central shrine. Any one of these responsibilities can make a person collapse, but Titan you is full of them. Do you really think he can succeed? Supreme Indestructible's cold face was expressionless as he pointed out the pressure and obstacles of Yu Yang's growth. He said frankly that he was not optimistic about the outcome of this battle. He will succeed. He is our hope. How could the Knight Empress not understand this? But other than Yu Yang, there was no other choice. Moreover, she firmly believed that Yu Yang would succeed. Otherwise, she wouldn't have sacrificed herself in exchange for time for Yu Yang to gain enlightenment before the battle. Supreme Indestructible did not refute. He only pressed the Golden Sun energy ball on his head down slowly. He was prepared to use this move to kill and annihilate the new Heaven Stairway ranker, Yu. He had done the same thing back then. He also used the exact same battle strategy and the exact same divine power ball of light to annihilate the Starlight Princess, who was so beautiful that no one could forget her for thousands of years even after she was killed. Even though killing the Starlight Princess was an extremely regretful action, it wasn't enough to bring down a Ji Zun. As a Heaven Realm ranker who had suppressed Tong Tian Tower and prevented it from reviving, he didn't mind continuing this regret. Since he had already killed Princess Starlight, why not kill her descendant as well? For the sake of the Central Shrine, there was no one in this world that he wouldn't kill. Hope? Sometimes, hope was just a fantasy of the weak in despair. Goodbye. With your talent, you might only need 200 or 300 years to fully mature. It's a pity that you won't have that chance. In your next life, if you still have a next life, don't reincarnate in Heaven's Stairway. No, don't reincarnate in this Tong Tian Tower that should have fallen long ago. Reincarnate in the Central Shrine that is destined to rule Heaven Realm. That is the true paradise of the strong. Supreme Indestructible finished speaking and pressed his hands down. The golden sun that was formed from endless divine power smashed heavily on the head of the Night Empress, who was trying her best to resist. The 12 zodiac palaces, which had lost their luster, under the immense divine power of the golden sun, all shattered, dissipated, and disappeared. The Milky Way, which had lost the support of star power, was instantly overwhelmed by the light. The starry night disappeared. In the clear sky, the lonely and helpless figure in the center of the golden sun was completely exposed. The Night Empress, who had never shown her true form in front of others, suffered a great blow to both her divine power and willpower under the sun that was forcefully created by divine power. Her beautiful figure almost completely separated from the starlight, and her true appearance was faintly visible. Chapter 1287. Under the Sovereign's will, everything was like an ant. It was the same for the God level. They were both the power of the laws. But the Night Empress, who had just reached the God level, was on a completely different level from the Sovereign Indestructible, who had spent nearly 10,000 years perfecting himself. The power of the laws that the Night Empress had comprehended was completely suppressed. She was like a crystal that had sunk 10,000 meters into the sea, with no possibility of rising back up. The golden energy ball of the sun formed by the Sovereign Indestructible covered the sky and earth, and smashed down like the Milky Way, destroying everything in the world. The Night Empress couldn't resist this level of attack at all. He could only watch helplessly as his own power was slowly suppressed by his enemy's divine power, and crushed bit by bit. The starlight was gone, and the sky and earth were no more. There was only one thing left in the world, and that was the unparalleled light of the sun that could burn everything in the world. The space was also shattered, forming a huge solar storm with shockwaves. It spun at high speed, spreading outwards and devouring everything in its path. But long before that, the light of the sun formed by the Sovereign Indestructible's divine power had already pierced through and destroyed everything like thousands of sharp swords. Wherever the shock waves passed, everything was turned to dust. There was no mushroom cloud that rose after the big explosion. There was no resistance, and there was no sign of anyone escaping from the center of the explosion. Everything was destroyed by the divine power. Everything was gone. It's all over. Like a god standing above the clouds, the invincible supremacy, who had a 20-meter-tall body and a strong innate talent, stood in the shattered void, his aura as awe-inspiring as a mountain. Boring. A voice that seemed to come from the depths of the 9 heavens came from a wisp of divine sense. Compared to the Starlight Princess who fought to the death back then, this silent night newbie who had just reached the god level is indeed much weaker. But if it had been a few hundred years later, even if she had grown freely for 200 or 300 years, the ending would have been completely different. The sovereign indestructible didn't look as happy as the other victors. On the contrary, he looked solemn and worried. He had easily defeated the Night Empress, but he didn't underestimate this enemy. Instead, he acknowledged the enemy's potential. If not for the limited time. For example, this newly ascended god-tier newbie would have been able to shine millions of times brighter than he was now, but it was a pity that he was killed by Supreme Indestructible with his peerless godly strength at the very beginning. Innate gifts, divine power attributes, cultivation time, battle experience, and so on were all unrivaled existences. Killing a newbie wasn't something to be happy about. Moreover, this newbie didn't seem like a newbie at all. He didn't have the time to fully display his potential, and only managed to hide for a moment before disappearing. This was enough to make Supreme Indestructible, the victor, feel a chill in his heart. It's a pity that we can't kill the person who hides in the mirage. Otherwise, the resistance of Tong Tian Tower would be nothing to worry about. The voice that seemed to come from the 9th heavens netherworld transmitted a new sentence. That person has already missed the best opportunity to kill him. As the saying goes, opportunity knocks but opportunity knock. Now, everything is a foregone conclusion. If we can force it to retreat to Fata Morgana and let it slumber in that mysterious and unfathomable dream world, it's already very commendable. Supreme Indestructible shook his head. He felt that killing a god-tier newbie from the Heaven Stairway Silent Night clan was two completely different things compared to killing a perfect god-tier newbie who had completely comprehended the power of the universal laws and was unrivaled in his own world. Indeed, if it wasn't for that Tianyu guy spying in the dark, that person might have already awakened in the dream world. Owner alone wouldn't be able to stop him. Although the 9th heaven's netherworld voice had his own opinions, he agreed with some fact. Let that person slowly sink along with Tong Tian Tower. Supreme Indestructible let out a long sigh. Tong Tian Tower's fall is already a foregone conclusion. No matter who comes, they won't be able to reverse it. Even that so-called miraculous genius Titan Yu is no exception. The 9th heaven's netherworld voice felt that the outcome was already decided. Titan Yu, I really want to meet this young man. Supreme Indestructible was actually a little interested in Yu Yang. After all, based on Yu Yang's growth experience, this young man was even more abnormal than the prison emperor Zhan Feng. He was even more talented and had more potential. It was really a little too inconceivable. It wasn't that there weren't any peerless geniuses in the soaring dragon continent, but no matter who it was, they would all pale in comparison to Titan Yu. At such a critical moment, this Titan Yu's whereabouts are still unknown. The 9th heaven's netherworld voice suspected that there was a trap. Even if he comes out, he would at most be a new god-tier newbie. There's nothing to be afraid of. Instead, I'm worried about the Conquest Queen behind him. If Fei Wenli has really recovered, there will be a fierce battle. Indestructible, if you meet the Conquest Queen, your title as the undefeatable sovereign would probably go down the drain. Supreme Indestructible also felt that the most troublesome thing was still Queen Vivian Li, who had yet to appear. No one knew if she had already escaped from the seal. If the Conquest Queen of the Heaven Realm regained her freedom, there would definitely be a bloodbath that would cover the skies. It doesn't matter if my title as the undefeatable sovereign falls to the ground, as long as I can laugh till the end. The master of the 9th heaven's netherworld voice was very clear about this. Indestructible, we've been waiting for so long, but there's still no sign of anything happening. It seems like the Heaven Stairway girl named Yi Yu has already been annihilated. Can we move on to the next stop? Supreme Indestructible, asked the undefeatable sovereign, who had been there all this while. Although the undefeatable sovereign rarely spoke, he was the boss. Any decision. Otherwise, even the undefeatable sovereign and the undefeatable sovereign's god-tier willpower wouldn't be able to carry it out so easily. The undefeatable sovereign still didn't speak. Silence was golden. Silence. Sometimes, silence meant tacit approval. But sometimes it meant the opposite. It meant rejection. Without the permission of the boss, the undefeatable sovereign and the invisible undefeatable sovereign could only wait where they were. The shattered void was gradually mending because of the law of heaven and earth. However, it wouldn't be restored to its original state even after 10 days. The undefeatable sovereign's divine power attack was too destructive to the void. The shattered space constantly gathered together, forming small pieces of existence. In the border areas that hadn't been mended, countless electric snakes flashed. At the same time, there was a strange suction force crazily devouring the energy to make up for the void's recovery. Although this extremely terrifying scene was happening in a myriad of ways, to the undefeatable sovereign and the undefeatable sovereign, everything in front of them was nothing special. Why did the undefeatable sovereign insist on staying here and not moving on to the next target? Did he think that the Heaven Stairway girl named Yu, the new god-tier member of the Silent Night clan, could come back to life under the clear sky and scorching sun? Whether it was the clear sky or the scorching sun, they all restrained the talent of the Heaven Stairway girl from the Silent Night clan. Without the night, how could there be starlight? As long as there was a sun in the sky, how could there be starlight in the sky? The Silent Night girl named Yu was dead for sure. The undefeatable sovereign was sure of it, because he had used 10 times the power that could kill an ordinary god-tier member of the Heaven Realm to crush the Silent Night girl. No matter how talented she was, no matter how high her potential was, she wouldn't be able to withstand the fatal blow. Under the powerful divine power, not to mention the starlight, even the heaven and earth were shattered, and the void exploded into millions of pieces. The heaven and earth were destroyed. How could a mere human body survive? After an unknown amount of time, the undefeatable sovereign finally saw a new change. A speck of starlight was like the dawn rising from the eastern horizon of the sky, like the dawn, rising slowly. The undefeatable sovereign's eyes were wide open. An incredible scene appeared in front of him. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it was real. Quietly, 1, 2, 3, some bright, some dark, some concentrated and some scattered, unknowingly occupied the sky. More and more, in this fragmented sky, the densely packed stars in the horizon returned. There was the Big Dipper, Southern Dipper, Venus Altair. If one looked at the constellations, the 12 zodiac palaces, 88 constellations, one after another appeared above the sky. The most amazing thing was the stroke of the brush that seemed to be of great skill. It had never been seen since ancient times. Then, it became the dazzling Milky Way that thousands of poets and poets were intoxicated by, wishing they could grow wings and soar into the heavenly river. In the starry sky, a meteor, like the tears of a beautiful woman, suddenly appeared and disappeared in the silver sky. In the broken void, there was a faint shadow of a beautiful but dazzling comet. The golden pupils of the undefeatable sovereign were enlarged by 10 times. Because he found that the woman on the heaven stairway, who was confirmed dead and her soul destroyed, was unharmed. Her divine power and will were even stronger than before. The power of the laws she controlled was gradually reversed and almost balanced. She seemed to be on par with the undefeatable sovereign, who had been in the god level for almost 10,000 years. Why? The undefeatable sovereign couldn't help but ask. With his wisdom and experience, he couldn't understand such an incredible existence at all. The bright sun can't destroy the stars, and the clear sky can't destroy the night sky. Day and night alternate. Neither exists alone, and there is no possibility for one to devour the other. The immovable supreme martial artist, who had always kept his mouth shut, suddenly spoke. His voice was like the echoes of the mountains that had stood for eternity. It was also like the silent canyon of the deep sea, where a volcano suddenly trembled. It made one's heart and liver tremble. However, his words were holy and righteous. They were unquestionable, like the setting sun in the river or the moon in the dark sea. Even as an enemy, they couldn't help but immerse themselves in it and listen to the mantra that echoed in their souls. So that's how it is. The undefeatable sovereign finally understood. The setting sun ends and the silent night rises. No matter how bright the world is, there will always be a time when it will fade. When the sun sets in the west, the lanterns are lit, and the stars fill the sky, that's when the night is the most beautiful. The night is quiet and the most pure. If there is a whisper, it will be like the sound of nature, the stars will move, and the mysteries of heaven will be revealed. Young lady of the Silent Night clan, your talent is the best I've ever seen. I'm afraid even the Starlight Princess, who was known for her beauty, talent, and wisdom in the sky-reaching tower, was inferior to you. The inheritance of the Heaven Stairway is full of outstanding talents. I can't help but sigh. The undefeatable sovereign almost jumped up in shock. The undefeatable sovereign hadn't spoken so much for at least 1,000 years. He had never seen a person who was able to receive such high praise from this golden mouth of the immovable supremacy. Only this woman in front of him. This woman from the Silent Night clan named Yi Yu was the only one who had received such a high evaluation. If what the undefeatable sovereign said was true, then wouldn't Yi Yu's talent be the heavenly words talent that could reveal the mysteries of heaven? Reveal the mysteries of heaven with a single word? Move the stars with her will, and reveal the mysteries of heaven with her words. From the looks of it, even under the influence of divine power and the tyrannical power of the bright sun, it couldn't stop her from shining like a star. No wonder she was a rookie who had just stepped into the god level, but already had the guts to challenge a super-level enemy. Even in the face of annihilation, she was able to mysteriously break through life and death and return to the world. Chapter 1288. Since the sun can't block out the stars, and the sky can't dim the night, then it's my turn. With regards to the return of the Night Empress and the golden praise of the immovable Jizun, the immovable Jizun, who was originally invisible outside the 9 heavens and indifferent to the outside world, suddenly became interested in making a move. He said eagerly, "Immovable, if your annihilation doesn't work, how about trying my seal? I can seal an excellent seed with great potential forever and let her live in solitude for the rest of her life. Isn't that something to be proud of?" Supreme Invincible snorted, "You're indeed better at sealing, but you don't have to do anything this time. This is my battle." Supreme Invincible refused. After a long silence, a voice came from the 9 heavens, "Then I'll give you half a day. Invincible, you've already wasted too much time. 2 hours at most, maybe 1 hour, and I'll be able to seal her perfectly." Supreme Invincible looked at Night Empress, who was still gathering stellar energy, and made an estimation in his mind. Sealing wasn't like annihilation. It couldn't be done in one move, especially a perfect seal, which required more time. Moreover, the Night Empress had just made a shocking return. Supreme Unfalling's evaluation of her strength had increased again and again. Originally, he wanted to say that he would finish it in 10 minutes, but to be cautious, he extended it to an hour. Let's wait and see. Supreme Invincible wasn't optimistic about the time that had been extended several times. His 20-meter-tall body erupted with godly power. It was like fire burning the sky. Countless lightning bolts danced around his body like golden snakes. The domain covered by godly power carried Supreme Invincible's unique will, forming a supreme nomological power outside of heaven and earth. Under the will of Supreme Invincible, everything within the domain was under his control. Even if the enemy standing in front of him was a god-level cultivator, He had no choice but to submit to the greater and more powerful nomological power. The cluster of stars, along with the space that hadn't closed in time, were wrapped up by godly power and nomological power, compressed and condensed infinitely. Countless stars that were originally all over the sky were twisted and moved to the center of the cluster of stars. A huge twisting power. The cluster of stars was compressed in a spiral shape. Then, bit by bit, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it condensed into a cluster of stars that was getting smaller and denser. Inside the cluster of stars, it was Night Empress, who was using her unique will to resist. This was a different kind of battle, one that didn't need to use fists, but was even more terrifying and painful than a battle of flesh, blood, and limbs being broken. There was no turning back for the loser. There was only one result, and that was to be irrevocably sealed until the end of their lives. The biggest blow of this seal wasn't losing one's freedom, but surviving. People would forever suffer in loneliness and despair. With Supreme Indestructible at the center, the domain space within 10,000 meters began to compress bit by bit. The core was the cluster of stars that the Night Empress was still resisting, while the periphery was a sealed space in the form of a black sphere formed from highly condensed, shattered space. Invincible power to destroy Night Empress's resistance and completely devour, and the seal would be complete. Night's will be. That would be the end of the battle. The Supreme Indestructible was elated to see that his sealing process was going so smoothly. The opponent before him was indeed an exceptional prodigy with astonishing talent and potential. If he could seal away such an exceptional seed, it would be a glorious achievement in his life. Unfortunately, such an excellent genius didn't come from the upper realm, but from the Tower of Babel. He came from the Silent Night clan of the Heaven Stairway, who had once fought them to the death. With that thought, Invincible increased his hidden godly power tenfold. The entire space was about to explode from the godly power. The compressed cluster of stars. The smaller it was, only a tiny black dot was left. Just as the light was about to engulf everything in the world, suddenly, a butterfly with wings made of starlight flew out. It ignored the piercing power of the divine power sun and danced alone, flapping its wings and releasing spots of starlight. Invincible's rule power, will, and godly power swept up a terrifying godly power storm. Within the godly power storm, there were countless godly hands formed by will. They interweaved like a net. They wanted to capture this unrestrained star butterfly. Unfortunately, no matter how the godly power storm roared and how the godly hands tried to capture it, they couldn't touch this star butterfly at all. It was as if it was incorporeal and incorporeal, an existence that only existed in fantasy and dreams. When the butterfly of stars gently passed through the storm of divine power, floated through the gaps in the net of divine hands, passed through the sun-like domain space, escaped the seal, and reappeared in front of Autarch Indestructible. It landed gracefully and once again turned into the Night Empress whom Autarch Indestructible wanted to kill. Night Empress turned from a star butterfly to a human, her figure faintly discernible. The starlight surrounding her was still bright, and it hadn't been weakened by the godly power seal just now. Although in terms of power she was still unable to approach a formidable opponent like Shizun, in terms of independent will, she was already a sovereign who had comprehended the divine level. She had an unchanging will, and even if the stars in the night sky were sealed by her divine power, she could still transform into a small star butterfly and return to the shattered space. No matter how strong Invincible's sun-like light was, or how cold the godly power storm was, or how dense the godly hand's net was, it couldn't stop her sovereign's will from existing independently. I am from the Silent Night clan, but I'm not limited to just the Silent Night clan. As the descendant of the Heaven Stairway, the flowers, butterflies, and the moon are all part of my clan's natural instincts. Night Empress' voice sounded like the sound of nature. If that's the case, I'll beat you up so badly that your skin can't cover your bones. Invincible decided to use his last move. Since he couldn't kill her or seal her, he would just injure her. A god-level injury would take at least 100 years to recover. Some would even take up to 1,000 years to recover. As long as he could injure this strong-willed silent night lady and force her to withdraw from this battle, he could slowly think of a way to seal her. There weren't many god-level sovereigns in the heaven-reaching tower anyway. Injuring one of them was equivalent to reducing the heaven-reaching tower's combat power by half. Now, Invincible had finally adjusted his mentality. He no longer treated the celestial stairway lady in front of him, who was clearly a divine-level newcomer, as a newbie. Although he did not know how she managed to comprehend it, the facts proved one point. Her willpower was already extremely close to the perfect supreme martial artist's divine sense, and it was already very difficult to destroy it. Killing and sealing her was no longer the first choice, nor was it the best choice. "I'll fight you to the end." Night Empress already knew that this would be a tough battle. It was hard enough to fight Invincible on her own. Moreover, behind Invincible Sovereign, there was the even stronger Invincible Sovereign, and the immovable Sovereign, whose power was unknown. In order to give Yu Yang enough time to cultivate, for the revival of her people, for the rise of the heaven-reaching tower, and for a future that wouldn't sink, she had to hold on. Even if she had to fight alone, she had to hold on. Night Empress' small body was tiny compared to Invincible Sovereign, who was 20 meters tall. But her supreme will. She resisted Invincible Sovereign's pressure head-on. She didn't retreat at all. For the third time, stars were born in the sky, forming one star after another, constellation after constellation. The Milky Way stretched across the sky, but the starlight still shone brightly. "I'll crush your stars." Paragon Invincible took a deep breath and clenched his fist. Boundless godly power gathered around him. Even if it were a planet, he would crush it with a single punch. No enemy would be able to survive in front of him. That was his will to fight. Mirror. Far away in the horizon, there was a clear ringing of a bell. She gently spat out a word, like a little fish spitting out a bubble in a pond. It also sounded like a cute bird hopping on a branch in spring, calling out to its companions to play with it. A miraculous divine mirror appeared in front of the Night Empress. It was formed from pure and spiritual divine power, and it spun like a paper pinwheel in the hands of the little girl who was running under the sunlight. It folded beautifully and spun round and round, forming a miraculous surface that could even reflect the angry and shocked face of the supreme indestructible. Invincible Sovereign roared and swung his fist with all his might. It hit the surface of the mirror heavily. It protected Night Empress' divine mirror. It didn't budge. On the other hand, Supreme Indestructible, who had been punching out with all his might, took a step back in disbelief. Supreme Indestructible just so happened to step on a patch of divinity brambles. These divinity brambles that had sprouted at some point in time immediately sprang up like a startled octopus, wrapping themselves around Supreme Indestructible's ankles. The densely packed barbs appeared eerily and fought to pierce into Supreme Indestructible's divine body that was millions of times harder than steel. The spikes were slightly difficult to pierce through, but Supreme Invincible's skin was able to stop them after they pierced in by just a centimeter. However, Supreme Invincible Sovereign, who could ignore even Thunderclap's summit, suddenly howled in pain. His 20-meter-tall body swayed. He almost fell over. His shining golden body quickly dimmed as an unknown dark green poison surged into his ankle through the thorns and flowed madly through his body. His skin and hair changed color, and Supreme Invincible Sovereign, who had been as unshakable as a mountain, suddenly felt weak, as if he was about to collapse. His lips turned dark green, and his howls of pain were hoarse and cryptic. He sounded even more exaggerated than a patient who had been bedridden for 10 years. The only thing that didn't change was Supreme Invincible Sovereign's golden eyes, which remained rational and clear. "Damn it, what kind of poison is this? How can it directly contaminate and damage my divine blood? Supreme Invincible Sovereign angrily pulled his ankle away from the thorns. He had wanted to crush it with his foot, but he found that the thorns were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at him. He quickly came to his senses, took a big step back, and threw out a ball of divine fire that could burn heaven and earth to destroy the thorns with his will. What made him even angrier was that the thorns were devouring and assimilating the divine fire formed from his divine will as they burned. Although the devouring and assimilation speed was very slow, he had already realized something. No matter how much divine power he used, he wouldn't be able to burn these damned thorns. They weren't afraid of fire at all. Or perhaps they could use the divine fire as nutrients, and more attacks would only make them multiply and grow. Supreme Indestructible tore at his chest, forcing out the unknown poison that had entered his body. His dark green divine body instantly regained its golden luster, and all the weakness he had felt before was gone in an instant. Did he want to make Supreme Invincible Sovereign, who had never fallen on the battlefield, fall? A mirror and a bunch of poisonous thorns were far from enough. For Supreme Invincible Sovereign, who had experienced countless fierce battles, this was child's play. However, what made him feel strange was that this was heaven-reaching tower. Where did the divine level come from? Apart from the one who had been sleeping at the entrance of the gods' ruins for 1,000 years, and Yi Yu of the Silent Night clan, were there any other divine-level experts in heaven-reaching tower? Impossible. Even the most talented and abnormal Titan Yu in heaven-reaching tower hadn't reached the divine level yet, let alone the others. Mirror and Poison, these two divine powers, did not belong to the Conqueror Queen Fei Wenli, who might have escaped from the seal. The Conqueror Queen's forte was not the power of this kind of mirror and poison. Furthermore, it was impossible for her to only have this little bit of power. Could it be that, other than this quiet night girl called Yi Yu, there were two other divine-level newcomers with the same innate talent in Tong Tian Tower? This question didn't faze Supreme Invincible Sovereign. Even Night Empress, who was protected by the divine mirror, found it unbelievable. It's you guys. When did you reach the divine level? Night Empress had never been so shocked in her life. She almost suspected that she had fallen for the enemy's trick. Am I dreaming? Is it really you guys? Chapter 1289. Two figures emerged from the shattered void. They were not like the Night Empress, who was hidden in the starlight, nor were they like the unfalling Supremacy, who was shining with golden light. Their appearances were no different from ordinary people. They didn't have the cold and imposing aura of a god-level expert, and they didn't have the splendor of a god-level expert. They also didn't have the splendor of a god-level expert, and they seemed more like cute little sisters next door. This was especially so for the youngest one. She seemed like a good student who studied earnestly, practiced diligently, and was obedient. She didn't have the slightest bit of the arrogance of a god-level expert who stood at the peak of the world. Were these two people really divine-level experts? Even the Night Empress couldn't help but wipe her eyes. But she soon realized that her eyes were not playing tricks on her. No matter how different their appearance was from that of a god-level expert, they could not hide the truth. God-level, they were definitely god-level experts. And they were even more powerful than the Night Empress, who had already comprehended her own supreme godhead and was infinitely close to a perfect god-level expert. What happened to you? After the Night Empress confirmed that she was not in a dream or an illusion of the enemy, she could not help but ask. Because the two people who came through the air were actually Yi Nan and Yu Bing, who had accompanied Yu Yang to the trial grounds for a few months. These two girls hadn't even stepped into the realm of divine envoys before, so how did they manage to skip the countless steps in between and ascend to the divine level? Moreover, the god-level power they were displaying was several times stronger than the Night Empress, who had finally reached the god level. How could this be possible? Is this an illusion? Even the unfalling supremacy was doubting his own eyes. Even though his full-powered attack had been blocked by the divine mirror that his opponent had condensed, and even though he had stepped on the divine thorn and was half dead from the poison, he was still unable to accept the truth before his eyes. Was he really injured by these two little girls? How could there be such god-level experts in the world? In the Tower of Babel, besides Yu, the conquest queen, and the person who was sleeping in the mirage, were there really other god-level experts? Even if there were god-level experts, they could not be two little girls who were not even 20 years old. Impossible, this must be some kind of trick, or perhaps it was the doing of the slumbering dream world who had never appeared in this world. She was the only one who could confuse people in the dreamland world. She was the only one who had the ability to toy with the senses of a god-level expert. Night Dream, show yourself. Since you've decided to give up defending and come out from that damn entrance of the gods' ruins to join the battle, then come out and say hello to us. Old friend, it's been a long time. After so many years, I've never forgotten the humiliation I suffered back then. Yes, I've always longed to fight with you, the only expert who left a stain on my life. The undefeatable sovereign who was hidden outside the 9 heavens Hades also shouted out a name that had disappeared from Tong Tian Tower for a long time, Yi Meng. Whether it's an illusion or a reality, whether it's real or an illusion, you guys can't even tell. How can you talk about a divine rank supreme godhead when you've lost your composure like this? The immovable sovereign suddenly opened his golden mouth and reprimanded sternly. What? Autarch Indestructible and Autarch Invincible were flabbergasted. They couldn't even speak properly. Were these two divine-level little girls, who were several times more powerful than the Night Empress, real? If someone else had said this, Autarch Indestructible would never have believed it. However, it was the immovable sovereign who said it, so he couldn't be doubted. Because the immovable sovereign's golden mouth would never be wrong. Even if Dongfang Hui, who was known as the wisest person in the central shrine, was wrong, the immovable sovereign's golden mouth would never be wrong. This was his innate talent and the embodiment of the will of his godhead. Under the golden mouth, there would never be any change. Therefore, the immovable sovereign had said that the two little girls in front of him were at the god level. No matter how inconceivable and unimaginable it was the truth. The Night Empress rushed over to welcome Inan and Yu Bing. She hugged their small bodies. She still felt like she was dreaming. Inan and Yu Bing, how could they suddenly become divine-level experts? Even Yu Yang, who had the fastest improvement in history, hadn't reached divine level. Sister Bing Yin took us to a place to practice. I can't explain the process clearly, but because we are very suitable, we have to carry brother's future for him in advance. These divine-level abilities are not ours, they are Big Brother's. No, I should say, they are Big Brother's future achievements. We don't know what exactly is going on, but we don't have to do anything. We just have to bear the burden for Big Brother. Yu Bing was a little confused, so she didn't know the truth very well. Hearing her words, the Night Empress was even more confused. Carry brother's future? Yu Yang hadn't reached divine level. He hadn't reached divine level, so how could he carry his future? Who was it that was doing this behind the scenes? According to Inan and Yu Bing's strength and wisdom, it was impossible for them to achieve it on their own. Even if there was someone pushing them from the back, it would also be in existence with an unknown amount of power. Only then would it be possible for the two girls to become existences that were several times stronger than themselves. The Night Empress naturally knew about the sister Bing Yin mentioned by Bing Er, but she believed that the Qilin girl Bing Yin, who was secretly guarding Yu Yang, with her immature ability, even the holy beast of the Eastern clan couldn't achieve this. This difficulty was no less than making two small saplings that had just sprouted into towering trees. It couldn't be done without the power of the giant god. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. It was her relatives and juniors, The Night Empress couldn't accept such a fact. This blessing has nothing to do with Sister Bing-yin. She is just a guide. We don't know what's going on, but there is a voice telling us to do it, so we did it. It's good for him anyway, it doesn't matter if we work a little harder. Moreover, the process of carrying it is very painful. It's fine after we finish it. We still want to carry as much as possible for Yu Yang. Unfortunately, our endurance and compatibility are limited. Inan didn't explain things clearly, but the Night Empress finally understood that these two little girls had met a benefactor. This benefactor, it should be the guardian behind Yu Yang that had been secretly hiding. It was this benefactor, with great divine power, who raised the blessing of these two muddle-headed little girls to a realm several times higher than their own divine level. As for the secret method used, it seemed to be to carry the future for Yu Yang in advance. Although she didn't quite understand, the Night Empress had already calmed down. Since there was a higher and stronger guardian behind Yu Yang, it wasn't surprising that there was such an incredible existence. Everything that happened to Yu Yang was a miraculous existence. Today, Inan and Yu Bing carried the future for him and reached divine level. This was also a very reasonable thing. If not, it would be strange. Could what happened to that kid be normal? The Night Empress suddenly felt touched. She couldn't help it. She hugged Inan and Yu Bing once again. She was touched that there was strong support from them in the difficult battle alone. She was also touched by their thoughts. She even felt gratified that there was such a powerful benefactor behind Yu Yang. With that kind of supreme guardian, that brat was finally safe. The Night Empress, who was originally suppressed by the Eastern Palace Master, the immovable sovereign, the Divine Palace's supreme heavenly chariot, and other powerful enemies, now felt as if the clouds were dispelled and the sun was shining again. You guys are very obedient. This burden must be very hard. The Night Empress knew that Inan and Yu Bing were only saying it in a relaxed manner on the surface. However, no matter how easy it was, if they didn't possess the power of a divine level, forcefully carrying the burden for someone else was an arduous task. Moreover, they were carrying the terrifying divine power that was several times higher than theirs in one go. Just how great of a price would they have to pay? How painful would that process be? The Night Empress didn't dare to imagine. She doubted if she had enough endurance to surpass Inan and Yu Bing under the same conditions. Such a blessing is the combination of divine power and one's own wisdom and endurance. With potential, talent, treasures, and beasts as the foundation, one can stand on a small starting point and hold up a tall building. Such ambition is commendable and wonderful. If one day the owner of the burden awakens, the combination of the two will transform one's own potential into reality. It won't be long before one officially reaches the divine level emptiness realm. The immovable sovereign let out a long sigh. After an unknown period of time, he said solemnly, "In 3 days, if we can't break through, this battle will end, and we will be defeated. That damned Titan Yu, will he be able to accept the divine power they are carrying in 3 days and officially awaken to the divine level?" The immovable sovereign felt a sense of danger in his heart. Beads of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. If Titan Yu can accept their divine power, it will indeed be troublesome. The immovable sovereign also felt that things were not going well. If Titan Yu, who was in hiding, was able to fully accept the god-level power of the two girls in front of him after 3 days, with the help of Yi Yu, Yi Meng, and Fei Wenli, this battle might not be a good one. The chess game plan that the East had been planning for thousands of years might go down the drain. The most terrifying thing was that the guardian behind Titan Yu who was supporting the two girls in front of him was most likely not an ordinary divine-level expert. His strength might be comparable to Empress Fei Wenli's. If that was the case, then there was no need to fight this battle. Even if the deity temple's sovereign Tian Yu came, he wouldn't be able to win. Fool! The immovable sovereign shouted angrily, "How can there be only 2? I only hope that there are less than 10. Otherwise, the tables will turn. 10. 10 bearers of divine power like the two girls in front of him? In 3 days, all the divine power he was carrying would be gathered on Titan U's body? Who would be a match for him then? The immovable sovereign shuddered at the thought of this. Then, his anger erupted like a volcano. He swung his fists at Anan Yu Bing and Night Empress. Kill, I will not allow this to happen. Die, all of you must die. Before Night Empress could act, Anan and Yu Bing had already rushed forward at high speed. 4 small fists joined hands and easily pushed the immovable sovereign back 10,000 meters. The divine mirror turned nimbly, and the sun ball thrown by the retreating immovable sovereign was reflected into the sky. On the other side, countless sealing divine power pressed down from the 9th heaven Hades, but it was torn apart by the hands of 2,000-meter-tall divine Titan Trans. The green spiritual light in the sky turned into a woman, protecting Yu Bing's back. With a point of her slender hand, thousands of ancient trees were uprooted from the void and combined with Yu Bing's domain, forming an ancient forest that could shatter the heavens and the earth, but had eternal life. Impossible! You are not divine-level experts. How can you fight against us? The immovable sovereign was about to go crazy. He realized that he could not defeat the two girls. We carry the power of destiny, which surpasses everything in the world. It is not something you can shake. Anan snorted. She had never seen anyone with the power of the giant of destiny that surpassed Yu Yang's. She didn't know how the mysterious guardian separated the power of destiny from Yu Yang's body and added it to herself. However, once she successfully carried it, nothing would be able to shake it before Yu Yang took it back. Even a god-level expert would be the same. No one can stop me. Don't you dare get away with it before I fall. Yu Bing's body was extremely pure, and with the guidance of the Protector, she had perfectly combined the supreme will, grimoire, domain, beast, and ancient runes she had comprehended. The undefeatable supremacy had hurriedly sealed it out of desperation. Even if he was struck by it thousands of times, he would not be able to shake the ancient forest that she had formed with her divine power. Immortal life, eternal life. This was the power of the Godhead that she had temporarily obtained, and it was also the highest form of her supreme will. Such an existence might not be able to attack, but it could defend itself. Chapter 1290. Heaven's Stairway, World Tree, Million Step. The Jiao Yu goddess stretched out her arms and held the sky with her palms. She concentrated everything and got rid of all distracting thoughts. The divine power that she had cultivated and channeled into Ji Zun flowed out bit by bit, making it look like the bright moon shrouding the earth. It filled the entire space and merged with all things, including Ji Zun and Yu Yang. The Jiao Yu divine power that she operated and controlled was very gentle, like a veil or a dream, misty and hazy. Although this kind of divine power could not cause any harm to Ji Zun and Yu Yang, she still tried to be as gentle as possible, feeling lighter than the wind and fainter than the moonlight. At this moment, the two of them were immersed in the resonance of tacit understanding. They couldn't afford to be disturbed in the slightest. Even a cough or the lightest footstep could cause the two of them to break free from the world of spiritual fusion. They would no longer be able to maintain the tacit understanding of one person. In this resonance where the mind and wisdom were integrated together, Ji Zun completely understood Yu Yang's cultivation, and Yu Yang also read Ji Zun bit by bit, understanding her completely more deeply and truly. There were no more secrets to speak of. At this moment, the two of them were as close as twin fetuses in their mother's belly. The two hearts beat together, and the two minds of the opposite sex but also integrated, drew closer to each other endlessly, forming a strange combination of you in me and me in you. Two different realms of enlightenment, two wisdom that expanded towards different fields, two souls that were born independently but with different characteristics, accepted each other infinitely, until they were completely one, and could no longer be separated from each other. The two of them, whose foreheads were touching, had unknowingly kissed each other. There was no lingering of lips and tongues. There was no teasing, flirting, or plundering. There was no element of lust, just subconsciously getting close and natural. Through the intimate contact of the four lips, a higher level of communication was achieved. It was the same for Ji Zun and Yu Yang in the soul world. Both of them were hugging each other. Without the restraint of clothes, their golden and dazzling souls were incomparably pure. The two of them were hugging each other completely. Their lips were touching and their hands were touching. One soul body and the other soul body were almost fused into one. In the past, only Shui Wuxia, Princess Sisai and the others, who loved Yu Yang deeply, could reach this perfect state of dual cultivation. For example, Southern Demon King and Aquamarine Bai Lu, even if they became Yu Yang's wives and had the greatest physical intercourse in the outside world, they were still slightly inferior, unable to completely and perfectly achieve this state of dual cultivation of the soul. If there were people other than Shui Wuxia, Princess Sisai and Fallen Beauty who could reach this state with their souls without the need of physical intercourse in the outside world, only Yu Bing and Yu could achieve this state of dual cultivation. Because Yu Bing let her brother purify her body and sublimate her soul countless times, her whole person became ethereal, clear and intelligent. Coupled with her unlimited trust in her brother, she never thought about other things when she practiced, and her consciousness was completely free of distracting thoughts. She was able to achieve this state of cultivation. As for Yu, she naturally knew what this kind of cultivation represented. But in order to help her brother grow in adversity, she had already abandoned her shyness and worldly views, completely relying on her own nature, and did everything for her brother. Right now, she had never dual cultivated with Yu Yang before. When she first entered the spiritual world, she unreservedly released herself, and also flawlessly reached the wondrous state of dual cultivation of the soul. In order to let Yu Yang master the power of destiny in the shortest time possible, she even constantly used her consciousness as a guide, transmitting all the insights in her life to him. In the process of transmission, the joy, anger, sorrow and joy in her life, all kinds of secrets and subconsciousness, were inevitably shared with him. Ji Zun knew the result, but she was even more duty-bound and more devoted to him. As for the future, after the two of them dual cultivated, how the results would evolve, she had no time to think about it, or perhaps she did not think about it at all. He read her bit by bit in this kind of cultivation, and in the process she also understood more about him. Except for some things that couldn't be touched by the existence of guardians, all kinds of things in his life, including love, desire, and hatred, were now completely vivid in her mind, as if she was personally involved. Boom! The world of the Holy Scripture suddenly expanded thousands of times, with Yu Yang as the center, extending infinitely outwards. After reaching the end of the infinite sky, reaching a distant limit that even the wisdom of its master, Yu Yang, could not fully understand, it gathered back at high speed, recondensed, and returned to Yu Yang's body, forming a circle of light like an existence. Yu Yang and Ji Zun. The two of them were immersed in the world of dual cultivation. They didn't understand what was going on at all, and could only watch quietly, sensing its changes. There was a kind of supreme divine power that no one could see, but it really existed, suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and put a part of the power of the giant of destiny on the world. Not more, not less. If it was a little more, the world might collapse immediately. If it was a little less, it would be lower than what the world could bear, causing an immeasurable backlash. This power of destiny was placed on the world, which Yu Yang and Ji Zun did not expect before. They could only watch the process quietly, and there was no possibility of stopping or controlling it at all. When it was completely placed, the world and the power of the giant of destiny that it could bear just reached an extremely perfect balance. It shocked the souls of the two again. What kind of skillful hands did it take to achieve such a distribution? What kind of ability did it take to cut off a part of the power of the giant of destiny that belonged to Yu Yang, placed it on the world, and let it bear the burden instead of the master? Who was it who had such divine power and wisdom? There was no time to ask more questions from their souls, and there was no time to understand more mysteries. The souls of the two were shocked by the maximum endurance of the world again. If the power of the giant of destiny that Yu Yang needed to control was a height of 1 kilometer, and it was enough to reverse the situation, then this world, that had always been a foodie since its birth, and had almost never had any amazing performance, at this moment, it was unbelievable that Yu Yang had borne the power of the giant of destiny that was 300 meters high. 300 meters! The power of the giant of destiny that was 1,000 meters high could ignore the conquerors of the heaven realm in the east, and completely reverse the whole situation. A world that existed as a foodie actually bore the power of the giant of destiny that was 300 meters high for Yu Yang. Moreover, it had no intelligence and was not a divine beast. It could bear the power of the giant of destiny that was 300 meters high. It was simply an incredible miracle. The next placement was the phantom that had always accompanied Yu Yang since he contracted the grimoire. The phantom had borne the power of the giant of destiny that was 250 meters high for Yu Yang. The number 1 war beast. The number 1 guardian war beast. The guardian war beasts Aman, Red, Shadow Giant and so on, all of them were the greatest help to Yu Yang in battle. Even the strong phantom that was born and became the number 1 guardian war beast since Yu Yang contracted the grimoire, had a maximum endurance of 250 meters. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the world that had borne the power of the giant of destiny that was 300 meters high just now. Of course, if there were no changes that happened next, the souls of the two would not have reached the greatest shock. I'm also ready, please let me bear a part of it. If we share the power of destiny that is 1,000 meters high, we will definitely succeed. Jiao Yu Goddess had been condensing for so long, all for this mysterious guidance that came from an unknown world. She also wanted to bear the power of destiny for Yu Yang. Even if it was 100 meters, as long as all the power of destiny was distributed, and everyone helped Yu Yang bear a little, then the height of 1,000 meters was not impossible. Now the world had borne 300 meters, the phantom had borne 250 meters, and there was also little one Li, who had just come out and was condensing all her will to accept the heavy pressure of the power of destiny. At the height of 1,000 meters, everyone shared a little. When it came to Yu Yang, he needed to bear less. After 3 days of comprehension and control, he could turn the impossible into the possible. Jizun and Yu Yang could not move. Their minds were intertwined, and they were both in the wonderful state of dual cultivation. But through telepathy, both Yu Yang and Jizun could see. This time, that unknown and formless hand of magic. What was placed on top of Jiao Yu Goddess's head was actually only 100 meters of the power of destiny. What shocked Yu Yang and Jizun the most was that Jiao Yu Goddess, who was carrying the power of the giant of destiny at a height of 100 meters, actually screamed. She was in so much pain that she couldn't even straighten her waist. Her protective divine power was almost shattered. In an instant, she couldn't even stay in the space of 1,000,000 steps. The divine power rumbled until it shattered the space of 1,000,000 steps and fell straight under the world tree. It was just 100 meters, but Jiao Yu Goddess, who had comprehended the will of the sovereign and had climbed to the divine level for a long time, couldn't bear it. Under the heavy pressure, she almost died on the spot. This terrifying power made Jizun and Yu Yang's mind almost explode. Was the power of destiny really that abnormal? Jiao Yu Goddess was in the divine level, but she couldn't even withstand 100 meters. Then what kind of abnormal existence was the phantom that could withstand 250 meters, and the world that could withstand 300 meters? When little Wen Li's delicate little hand held up the power of the giant of destiny at a height of 380 meters, Even Yu Yang couldn't stay calm. He and Ji Zun woke up from the dual cultivation state at the same time. They stared at everything that was happening in front of them with their mouths agape. It turned out that this adorable little Lamia Loli was actually the most abnormal existence. When the two of them reacted, they were shocked to discover another thing. According to the current height they could bear, it had already exceeded 1,000 meters. The world was 300, plus the Phantom's 250, Jiao Yu Goddess's 100, and finally Little One Li's 380 meters. Wouldn't it be a height of 1,030 meters? Since it had already reached 1,000 meters, Yu Yang should be able to adapt to the weather, gradually control it, and comprehend the attraction, transforming himself. Why was there no reaction? If carrying it was useless, the invisible magical hand would definitely not do so. But if it was useful, why didn't it take effect? Yu Yang and Ji Zun looked at each other. The two of them tacitly thought of a terrible possibility. Boom! Jiao Yu Goddess kept falling, 500,000 steps, 100,000 steps, 10,000 steps, and finally she couldn't even stand on 1,000 steps, until she fell to the starting point of the heaven stairway, fell to the root of the world tree, then gritted her teeth and supported the power of the giant of destiny at a height of 100 meters. Ji Zun, who had a telepathic connection with Jiao Yu Goddess, couldn't help but change her expression. Just when she and Yu Yang didn't know how to react, suddenly, in their ears, a heavenly voice that seemed to be transmitted from the world of dreams sounded softly. "Are you listening? Please listen carefully." Ah Xian's next words, "You must listen carefully, then do as she asks." San Er and sect leader Ming Xian, you might already know by now, but it's impossible to reach the realm of divine venerable just by carrying the power of the giant of destiny at a height of 1,000 meters. This is because, San Er, you don't just have one grimoire, you also have the divine grimoire from the trial ground. Back then, my sister had once entrusted me with a task. If San Er needs everyone's help one day, then I will tell you the truth. Now, what I want to say is, what you need to bear is not only the power of destiny at a height of 1,000 meters. This is only your current effort. The real thing that will help you build your foundation and achieve your future is to satisfy the requirements of the two grimoires to create an eternal world. If there is more than that, then that is the growth potential of the divine level in the future. Fourth Mother transmitted her voice to Yu Yang and Ji Zun's spiritual world through His Majesty. Heavens! Yu Yang almost fainted. He didn't have two grimoires, but three, and one of them was a divine grimoire that even he, the owner, couldn't enter. God knows how much power of destiny was needed to create an eternal world inside. This time it was really over. Yu Yang was no longer thinking about how to defeat the East. With over 1,000 meters of fate energy on his back, as long as he calmed down and absorbed it, perfectly controlling it, the outcome of this battle was already set in stone. However, if that was all, then he would at most become a god-rank giant of fate that was 1,000 meters tall. Not to mention the potential after god rank, even the holy exalt that he had yearned for a long time would slip by. Becoming a divine sovereign was actually this difficult. It was no wonder that over the millennia, not many people had been able to become divine sovereigns. It was also no wonder that those true gods who had climbed up to the divine level had always been stuck at their original level. Increase your sister, who could create an eternal world and still have more divine power to form potential, who would have the ability to carry such a huge amount of divine power on their back. Following Fourth Mother's words of truth, the divine grimoire that Yu Yang obtained but couldn't summon out of the trial ground came out. Its spirituality gave feedback to Yu Yang and Ji Zun. In order to create an eternal trial world that completely belonged to Yu Yang's will, it needed the power of a giant of fate that was at least 3,000 meters tall. With regards to this blow, Yu Yang was already dizzy to death. Next, Yu Yang's first contracted divine grimoire that had always been the greatest help in his life and battles actually needed even more. It needed the power of a giant of fate that was at least 5,000 meters tall. Yu Yang was speechless. Where could he find someone to carry the power of a giant of fate that was 8,000 meters tall? One must know that goddess Jiao Yu, as a divine level, couldn't even last 100 meters. If it wasn't for Phantom Shadow, World and Little Wenli, even 1,000 meters would be difficult. Ji Zun originally wanted to comfort Yu Yang, but when that mysterious divine grimoire came out and required the power of a giant of fate that was at least 10,000 meters tall, she didn't know how to comfort Yu Yang. This was a number that made people feel despair. The divine grimoire that Yu Yang had painstakingly obtained in the trial grounds, compared to this mysterious and unfathomable divine grimoire that had never appeared in front of others, was simply an existence akin to floating clouds. Just this one alone had far exceeded the number of trial grimoire and the first contracted divine grimoire combined. What made Yu Yang the most furious was that he had contracted this divine grimoire and hadn't used it at all. How could it ask him for so much power of fate? Is there still justice in this world? In the previous world, he was a foodie. At least he could appear at important moments, but this divine grimoire couldn't even be summoned normally. It's over. Yu Yang's head was now bigger than 3 heads. What should he do next? Ji Zun was also a little dizzy, but she still tried her best to comfort him. There are no difficulties in this world that can't be overcome. If we face them together and work hard together, we will definitely succeed. This is the biggest difficulty, but once we pass it, all our efforts will be rewarded. Cultivation, experience, improvement. On the surface, it seems that one person is working hard, but in reality, it is never one person's matter. Long ago, elder sister had already made arrangements. Although I wasn't able to help San'er grow in the past, Shuang'er and I will support you in this trial. Moreover, Hua Xian is calling out to all the relatives and friends who heard my voice, as well as the seniors, subordinates, people, races and so on who are related to San'er's fate. If you are willing, please stand up and help San'er carry the power of fate that belongs to him, but is also closely related to everyone's lives. As long as more people stand up, no matter how difficult this trial is, we will all be able to overcome it. This is my San'er's future achievement, and also everyone's future glory. If you hear it and are willing to stand up, please follow the secret that Hua Xian will tell you next. Use your own willpower and endurance to carry a portion of the power of fate, even if it is a very, very small portion. Hua Xian will thank you in advance. Everything, I will leave it to everyone. When Fourth Mother's voice resounded once again, this time, not only did it resound in Yu Yang and Ji Zun's hearts, all the relatives and friends who knew Yu Yang, all the clans who supported him, no matter if they were fighting, sitting quietly, or even in their dreams, they could all hear Fourth Mother's words clearly. This was Fourth Mother's request, and also the guidance of His Majesty's ability. Yu Yang was so moved that he almost cried. He clenched his fists, closed his eyes, and tried hard to restrain himself, not letting his emotions collapse in the midst of being moved. Night Empress, Princess Sisai, Fallen Beauty, Drunken Cat and the others who were fighting. Duo, Jianging, Ika, Future, and Hui Tai Lang who was crazily devouring the Heaven Realm army's small fries. Fatty Hai Yikong, Shui Tan Lang, Prince of Tian Luo and the Li brothers, even the Oxhead Fan Luan Tai, Li Ao, Lin En and other friends. Old Fox, Jun Wuyu, Elder Yu Hai and Sky Execution, Dragon Emperor and the Emperor of the Underworld, who were holding the hatred-parting divine sword in their hands. Countless relatives and friends who were related to Yu Yang's fate heard Fourth Mother's call at this moment. Now it was up to them to choose. Should they choose to support him? Or should they sit back and watch Yu Yang fail in his breakthrough? Carrying the power of fate for others and helping others achieve their future, wasn't this also a choice of fate? Chapter 1291. Tong Tian Tower. After hearing Fourth Mother's telepathic call, Fatty Hai was the first to jump up. Originally, he was half dead, but his whole body seemed to be full of blood as he shouted loudly, "As a boss, it's finally time for me to show my skills. There's no helping it, in this most important moment of life, it's impossible to not have me as your boss to protect you. Don't be afraid, I'm coming. Go and die." Yi Kong angrily kicked him away. Luckily Fourth Mother's telepathic call could reach his heart and was not affected by the outside world. Otherwise, if this damn fatty interfered, he would not be able to make up for it even if he was skinned alive. Shui Tan Lang and Prince of Tianluo also listened nervously. In this most important moment, they did not dare to miss even half a second. Even if they missed a sentence, it might cause irreparable damage to the whole situation. Other than the simple-minded Fatty Hai, no one was in the mood to talk glibly at this time. Fatty Hai climbed up, but before he could speak, the wind-breath seabird that had turned into a human had already stretched out her small hand and pinched the fat on his waist. It was so painful that he gasped, the fat on his body trembled. If it was someone else, they would have already turned hostile. However, the one who punished him was a beauty, and the one who he had been trying to please. At this time, he naturally did not dare to show the pain on his face, but instead squeezed out a wretched look of enjoyment. Towards this kind of dead dog is not afraid of hot water, damn Fatty, what could they do to him? Moreover, no one had the time to beat him up now. Fourth Mother paused. She seemed to be thinking about what to say. After almost a minute of pause, she slowly said the secret method to help Yu Yang bear the power of fate. The secret method was transmitted to the world through telepathic call, and all of them were people who were closely related to Yu Yang's fate, or friends and relatives. She was not afraid that the enemy would know about this secret method. It was just that once the secret method was revealed, within 3 days, the people who could bear the power of fate for Yu Yang must make a choice. Otherwise, the opportunity would be lost forever. The opportunity could not be missed, and it would not come again. She was talking about the current important moment and situation. "I am the Tianluo Emperor, Hua Su Ri. Regarding the matter of me bearing the power of destiny for Yu Yang, I shall give you an explanation. There was no need to worry. Anyone could shoulder the burden of destiny for Yu Yang. Even ordinary people could contribute as long as they were confident. In the process of carrying the power of destiny, there was no danger to their lives, and they didn't have to pay anything. Even if they failed, it wouldn't affect them in the slightest. This was purely a righteous act, and an unconditional support. As long as you're willing to support Yu Yang and believe in him, you can participate. There's no difference in status or ability. In the process of shouldering the power of destiny, if you suddenly change your mind, you can give up at any time. There's no need to force yourself." His Majesty's voice suddenly rang out. As if he had seen the doubts of countless people, His Majesty's words hit the nail on the head and pointed out that there would be no problem with carrying the power of fate. If we succeed in the end, Hua Xian will suggest San to repay all the supporters. Of course, this still depends on everyone's support. Whether it's yes or no, Hua Xian doesn't dare to lie for now. Fourth Mother was kind-hearted. She hoped to give everyone a promise. In truth, any holy exalt would be able to display remarkable abilities once they advanced. Raising their hands to bless, repaying the supporters was a very normal move. But she was worried that what she said would exceed Yu Yang's will. If Yu Yang couldn't complete it smoothly in the future, it would definitely cause a negative impact. So she didn't make a promise lightly. Compared to Fourth Mother, His Majesty was much more straightforward. Repaying is what Yu Yang wants, not what we want. Everyone who can hear our call, you're all related to Yu Yang's fate. If you're not unrelated, then you definitely won't be able to hear our voice. Here, Xian isn't willing to say it, so I'll say it on her behalf. Support must be unconditional. if we, the people of Tong Tian Tower, have to stand up and bear the power of fate for our comrade and help him advance to the Holy Elder Realm, and still talk about repaying him, then we'll simply be laughing at the rankers of Heaven Realm and Heaven Realm. In their eyes, we, Tong Tian Tower, are like a country bumpkin village. Now that there's finally someone who can advance to the Holy Elder Realm, this is a grand occasion that they've been longing for thousands of years. In the Heaven Realm and Heaven Realm, if there's such a magnificent feat, there might be thousands of unknown warriors who are willing to sacrifice themselves for it, dedicate everything, and use their honor to help him achieve great success. But they don't have such a chance, and they can't even hope for such a chance. Now, if we, the people of Tong Tian Tower, don't need to pay any price, as long as we support them with our faith, we can help our comrade advance to the Holy Elder Realm. Why would we need to talk about conditions? We're like merchants chasing after profits. Wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? If all of our people's wills are that depraved, then how can Tong Tian Tower revive and rise? Chasing after profits is not the nature of us warriors. What we pursue is a higher realm. We will gather our faith, unconditionally support our strongest, and help him soar to the sky. We won't lose anything at all, but what we get in the future is something that those secular people can't even think about. Don't talk about rewards, don't talk about honor. In the process of carrying the power of fate, we can also rely on this grand feat to promote ourselves. Perhaps you never knew your own potential and future achievements. This has always been the secret of a warrior's growth. Only those who are willing to participate in carrying the power of fate will see the truth in that process. Through the reference of the Holy Elder Realm, you may be able to see yourself clearly. Alright, I don't want to describe too many things here. This is an opportunity for Yu Yang, and for you, isn't it also an opportunity? Those who are willing to support Yu Yang unconditionally, stand up as soon as possible and join us. No matter what race, no matter what identity, as long as you can stand up and support us at this most important moment, then you will be a true friend, a true follower. As soon as His Majesty finished speaking, Fatty Hai was the first to jump out again. He raised his hands high above his head. He shouted loudly with the posture of a savior, "I am willing to carry the power of fate for that brat Yu Yang. Come, give me the power of a giant of fate that is 1,000 meters tall. Although I usually keep a low profile, I can easily carry the power of fate that is 1,000 meters tall. Do you think I would say such a thing everywhere?" Actually, according to the secret method passed down by Fourth Mother, it was the same no matter what posture one used to bear the power of fate. However, Fatty Hai put on a posture of a savior, which made people's hearts boil. Yi Kong didn't have time to care about him now, otherwise he would have the thought of chopping this damn fatty into 18 pieces and arranging them into 36 models. "Shut up. If you make any more noise, I'll cut off all the fat on your body and fry it in oil to make pancakes." The moment the humanoid wind breath seabird spoke, the fatty finally stopped talking for 3 seconds. My dear God! Fatty Hai's body shook. The power of fate that was born by the secret method was different from the distribution of the invisible magical hand beside Yu Yang and Ji Zun. It was completely in line with the target's maximum endurance. The process of carrying this secret method was to slowly increase, starting from less than 1 meter, gradually increasing until the support reached the limit. Fatty Hai, who had just boasted that he would carry the power of the giant of fate that was 1,000 meters tall for Yu Yang. Now, even 1 meter was lying flat on the ground. His whole body sunk deep into the mud pit, only revealing a wretched and dirty face. The power of fate did not affect the outside world at all. It only affected the body of the bearer. The reason why Fatty Hai was like a mud turtle was entirely because he couldn't bear it, and the strength of his body was disordered. However, seeing this unkillable Fatty Hai, who was carrying the power of fate that was 1 meter tall, in such a wretched state, Yi Kong and Xue Tan Lang were completely shocked. Didn't this mean that the power of fate that they were carrying was also within this range? At first, Yi Kong and Xue Tan Lang thought that they did not dare to think about the height of 1,000 meters. If they clenched their teeth, they might be able to carry the power of fate that was 100 meters tall for Yu Yang, who knew that carrying a meter had already pressed Fatty Hai to such a state. What made them even more ashamed and mad was that when Yi Kong, Xue Tan Lang and the others tried to use their secret techniques to help Yu Yang bear the power of fate, they immediately had a telepathic connection with each other, allowing them to sense the incomparably distant space. The other people who were carrying the power of fate could only gather at a height of 1 meter, which was negligible. But Yi Nan and Yu Bing, these two girls, had a height of 180 meters and a height of 160 meters respectively. It was really unimaginable. What kind of willpower did they rely on to reach such a height with such a weak body? Sister Bing Air can also carry it more than 100 meters. I definitely can't lose. Keep adding more, I don't want to be like this, I am the boss, I definitely can't lose. Fatty Hai clenched his teeth and tried his best to increase the power of fate that he was carrying. However, with his endurance, 1 meter was already unbearable, a few meters was already the limit of his body. It doesn't matter even if my body collapses, go. I, Yi Kong, am the teammate who supports Yu Yang the most. Yi Kong roared crazily. Xue Tan Lang supported himself with one arm. His eyes were red and his veins were popping out. Amongst his teammates, he temporarily left Yi Kong, Fatty Hai and Prince of Tian Luo at a height of 10 meters. However, he was not happy with this height at all. Go up, continue to add more. There was no limit. He felt that even if he had a limit, it should not be a mere 10 meters. As girls, Inan and Yu Bing could carry more than 100 meters for Yu Yang. If he, a group of men, could not even compare to them, how could he have the face to say that he was Yu Yang's teammate? Furthermore, his limit should not be 10 meters, it should be higher. If his body still had any potential, if there was any potential, then he should let it all explode. Right now, he had nothing else to ask for. He only wanted to explode once, so that he could be a man and bear the glory that belonged to him. Who am I? I am Xue Tan Lang. I was once known as the most talented genius after Yu Yang. Is this my limit? No, definitely not. Damn it. Fatty Hai, you are the boss, aren't you ashamed to only carry the power of fate that is a few meters high? Are you going to live like a coward forever, hiding behind others and dragging out your life? Can't you just stand up and prove yourself? No, I am the genius Hai De Fu, not the idiot Hai De Fu, not the coward Hai De Fu. Stand up, I want to stand up. Fatty Hai saw that Yi Kong, Xue Tan Lang and Prince of Tian Luo were all carrying the power of fate higher than him, especially Xue Tan Lang, who was now more than 10 meters high. He immediately felt humiliated and slapped himself a few times. He crawled out of the mud pit with tears streaming down his face. He knelt on the ground and lowered his hands, holding them in front of his chest, as if he was holding the most important dignity in his life. He muttered to himself to encourage himself while using his secret technique to increase the power of fate. 10 meters, the monkey can do it, the prince can do it, Coffin Face can do it, I can do it too, I am the boss, I have to act like a boss. Not just 10 meters, I can carry even more, even higher. Who am I? I am the boss of that abnormal genius Yu Yang. I don't want to be a coward, I am not a coward, I want to be a man with an indomitable spirit, I want to fight for once, for my family and for myself. Yes, I want to be a qualified boss, I can do it, I definitely can. Chapter 1292. Don't even think about it. As long as I, Dongfang, exist, don't even think about changing your fate. Weaklings will always be weaklings, there will never be a day where they can counterattack. Your luck may be able to be arrogant for a while, but only wisdom can shine till the end. Only I, Dongfang, have the qualifications to be the final victor. Dongfang stood above the 9 heavens, elegant and at ease, as if he was a celestial descending. He looked at the fierce battle between the Heaven Realm Army and the soaring Dragon Continent's Dragon Knight Army and Dragon Bloodguard's army. Although he couldn't hear Fourth Mother's call, he, who was gifted in chess and had extremely high intelligence, could easily see through the subtle changes in the battlefield below and see through the essence of things. Those soaring dragon warriors who wanted to fight to the death in exchange for glory, such as Titan Yu's grandfather Yu Hai, Xia Emperor Jun Wu Yu and the various clan masters of the 4 great clans, all retreated. Using some kind of secret method, they started to receive some kind of mysterious power. Dongfang admitted that he was not blind, but even if he was, he believed that he could see their intentions. These fellows wanted to help Titan Yu bear some kind of fate power that needed to be passed. No matter how talented Titan Yu was, he was still too young. With his wisdom and comprehension, he would not be able to bear the fate of the entire Tong Tian Tower. If Titan Yu needed to make a change and hope to counterattack, then he had to take the risk. And these friends and relatives of Titan Yu would definitely want to stand behind him and support him with their lives. Bear fate? Would it really be that easy? Not to mention that he could stop them. Even if he didn't, the chances of success was only 1 in 1,000. With these people's qualifications, how much fate power could they bear? They didn't even have divine envoys or divine generals. They were merely innates. They weren't even innates, and they dared to say that they would bear fate for others? This was simply making others laugh their heads off. According to this level of fate power, to be able to bear 1/10 of a meter, it seemed that they already had the strength of divine envoys. Only divine generals could do 1/2 a meter. Could all these people add up to 1 meter? This was too funny. Titan Yu's so-called supporters were such a group of scum? It seemed that they were really a group of trash that deserved to be swept into the trash pool of history. Thousands, tens of thousands of people, it seemed that they couldn't even bear the fate power of 10 meters. If it was so weak, there was no reason for Tong Tian Tower not to collapse. Of course, it was precisely because they were weak that it was more enjoyable to abuse them. This was the education and cleansing of the ignorant by the wise. Comrades, no matter which race or region you come from, let us unite and fight against the invaders from the Heaven Realm. I am Yu Yang Titan Yu, the 3rd young master of the Yu clan that many people talk about. I am also your friend, the new prison emperor and guardian of Tong Tian Tower. I know that you can hear my voice. As long as you are a brave warrior who is filled with passion to fight for Tong Tian Tower, you can hear my call. You did not hear wrongly, it is me who is calling you. I need everyone to do something for me now. It is very simple. Everyone, as long as you raise your hands and chant the phrase, "Heaven and earth are like the arms of all living beings in your hearts," then you can help me resist the evil and defeat the invaders from the Heaven Realm. Please believe me, this does not require you to sacrifice your lives, and it will not affect everyone's abilities. It is only temporary. Let me control your beast. I need your faith and the strength of your beast. With your support and help, I will definitely be able to obtain the final victory. Smiles and cheers will definitely return to our faces. I am willing to fight for all of you. My dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, I also hope that you can extend your hands and help me move towards success. Dongfang suddenly used Yu Yang's voice to transmit to every Tong Tian Tower warrior and even normal people's hearts in the 10th floor of Tong Tian Tower through his supreme godly strength and chess talent. His troublemaking and guidance caused many people to fall into confusion. Wasn't there a secret before? Why was there a new phrase like, "Heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things"? Furthermore, that secret was not simple. It was much more complicated than just reciting this phrase silently. Could it be that Yu Clan's 3rd young master saw that everyone could not meet the requirements and deliberately made some adjustments? This is simple. Ha, I feel that the power of my summoned beasts has been successfully drawn out, but my body is very relaxed. I don't feel that heaviness anymore. The burdens that felt like splitting headache have been swept away. Awesome. Someone tried it and immediately felt that the phrase, heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things, was effective. He couldn't help but shout it out. Moreover, the strange thing was that his shout immediately spread clearly within a radius of more than 10 kilometers. All the warriors within the radius could hear his voice clearly. Aya, it's very simple, I also succeeded. Immediately after, more people tried it out and cheered thunderously. Let us shout, heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things together. Our enemies will tremble under our shouts. Our might will be invincible. The roar of justice is the key to opening the door to victory. It is the symbol of the road to success. Let us roar, roar. The voice of Dongfang, who was disguised as Yu Yang, started to stir up people's hearts. Listening to his call, countless of his comrades around him also succeeded. More mercenaries and martial artists joined the fray. At first, it was not neat. However, more and more people joined in, and the sound became louder and louder. In the end, it became a shout that resounded through the sky. Heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things. Heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things. In the midst of the shouts, the power of countless beasts was drawn out. Under the control of Dongfang's godly power, the collective will even exploded into a huge protective shield, pushing the Heaven Realm army out. When the participating Tong Tian Tower warriors shouted like a tide, the sound waves formed were earth-shattering. The Heaven Realm army retreated step by step, unable to resist, their willpower almost collapsing. The appearance of this spectacle made the Tong Tian Tower warriors even more crazy. They threw themselves into it with incomparable fanaticism. Countless people were moved by the power they had contributed. The Heaven Realm army, which could not withstand the fierce battle, now retreated. They were pushed back by the power of their own belief. This was the miracle created by their own belief. This was the power of their own beliefs. Over and over again, they shouted the phrase, heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things. No matter how they shouted, they did not feel tired. There was no need for swords or sabers. There was no need for blood and sacrifice. As long as they shouted, they could make the enemy flee in embarrassment. What kind of glory was this? What kind of glory was this? This brat Yu Yang really has a way. The Eastern Sky King was an uncouth man. He felt that it was extremely painful to bear the power of fate with a secret technique. It was easier to directly draw out the power of the beasts with the heaven and earth are like the arms of all living things. If he had known this earlier, he would not have worked so hard with the pressure of the mountains. Let's shout too. The Western Sky King was also a lively person. He saw that the Dragon Knights and Dragon Blood Guards joined Yu Yang's call one after another. The power formed by shouting was very strong. The protective shield was 1,000 meters high, and the pressure made the Heaven Realm army's soldiers scared witless. He could not help but feel his heart heat up and his throat itch. Of course, he and the Eastern Sky King were not that kind of idiot. They could be considered to be very meticulous. They first looked at Jun Wuyu, the Old Fox and Elder Nangong, these think tanks who really held the strategic direction. With one look, they were shocked, because they found that Jun Wuyu's body was trembling non-stop, and the Old Fox's face was pale. Even the usually calm Elder Nangong's hand that was holding the grimoire was trembling. What's going on? The Eastern Sky King and the Western Sky King looked at each other in astonishment. They both saw a trace of unease in each other's eyes. There's someone stealing the name. The Old Fox could not even finish his words. It's that traitor from the East. Elder Nangong's face was gloomy, and he let out a long sigh. This guy is too scary. He schemed against us. Maybe he had already calculated this step. Wasn't it Yu Yang just now? Feng Kuang, Xiahou Weijie, and the others were also scared to the point that their limbs turned cold. To bear the power of fate, one must pay the same amount of pain as the original body, or else it would not be counted. The East's move was to make use of people's natural fear of pain, and use an easier inherent skill to deceive those young people. The Dragon Knights, Dragon Blood Guards, and countless mercenaries who volunteered to join the battle were all fooled. They were fooled by the illusion and fell into a frenzy. Grandma Wu Ting also shook her head and sighed. The East's move was indeed very accurate. No wonder he could be crowned as the #1 think tank in the central shrine. Heaven and earth as the arm of all living things. Tens of thousands of mercenaries, thousands of Dragon Knights and Dragon Blood Guards all shouted in unison. Everyone's face was filled with fanaticism, and they roared again and again. Their voices were like thunder, shaking the heaven and earth. Let's quickly stop them. Feng Kuang and the others were extremely anxious. It's useless, they can't hear our voices anymore. Those shields were used by the East to block us, and not to defend against the Heaven Realm Army's attack. He commanded the Heaven Realm Army to put on a show of throwing away their helmets and armor, causing everyone's minds to be lost in that kind of abnormal belief. We are completely powerless to stop them. Furthermore, we must seize the time and continue to bear the power of fate for Yu Yang. We don't have the time to stop this kind of fanaticism. If we do that, we will also fall into the East's trap. Dongfang Jing hopes that we can stop them. We can't change our minds, we must continue and not be moved by external forces. In this limited time, we must bear more power of fate for Yu Yang. Otherwise, the ones who will fail in the end will definitely be us. Elder Nan Gong stopped Feng Kuang and the others. Currently, the most important thing was not to awaken the Dragon Knights and Dragon Blood Guards who had already fallen into fanaticism. Instead, it was to bear the power of fate for Yu Yang. Elder Yu Hai heavily punched the ground, tears flowing down his old face. On one side, it was the hot-blooded army that he had personally trained, and on the other side, it was his grandson who urgently needed support. Regardless of whether it was watching the other side fall, it made him feel as if he was being cut by a knife. Tens of thousands of Dragon Knights and Dragon Blood Guards, or his proud grandson, he had to make a choice. Furthermore, it was the only choice. No matter if he was the commander or the grandfather, he had to choose his grandson, because he was Tong Tian Tower's only hope now. If we continue to hesitate, then the entire Tong Tian Tower will be buried in our hands. Jun Wu Yu was indeed worthy of being an emperor. He clenched his teeth and made his decision. No matter if the Dragon Knights and Dragon Blood Guards can turn back or not, there is only one thing we can do now, and that is to sacrifice everything and bear the burden of fate. We must carry Tong Tian Tower on our shoulders. We must let that brat Yu Yang know that he is not the only one carrying Tong Tian Tower. Us old fellows will always stand behind him. Come on, let's be decent elders. I am willing to bear this fate for him, and for the future of Tong Tian Tower. The old fox's eyes turned red. On the battlefield there were two completely different spectacles. On one side there were many people. Above their heads was a golden barrier that was hundreds or even thousands of meters tall. Their arms were raised like a forest, their eyes were filled with fanaticism as they shouted in unison. On the contrary, there were very few people on the other side. They were painfully supporting themselves on the ground, struggling to support the invisible and heavy power of fate. Before they reached their limit, before Yu Yang successfully leveled up, they could not relax for even a moment. This was because what they were carrying was not only the power of fate, but also the hope and future of Tong Tian Tower. Dongfang saw all of this. He did not stop them. Of course, carrying the power of fate could not be stopped. Any destructive actions would receive a terrifying backlash from the power of fate. Dongfang would definitely not let his own safety and the overall situation be affected just because of a dozen of Yu Yang's friends, teachers, and seniors. How much can you bear for him? 10 meters is already the limit, ha 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 ha. Without reaching 10,000 meters, don't even think about becoming a divine sovereign. You were all destined to fail long ago. Painfully hold on, the sinking Tong Tian Tower is not something that can be supported by human strength. Moreover, this is just the beginning, the more interesting things are yet to come. Dongfang sneered. His divine power broke through the void and instantly teleported out of the Tong Tian Tower's 10th floor, heading straight for his next target. Chapter 1293. Shattering the Void. Between Tong Tian Tower and Heaven Realm, the original passage had already become a broken space-time fissure. Energy storms and space-time whirlpools could appear at any time, engulfing everything in their path. The laws of heaven and earth had lost their effect here, and could no longer be restored like normal broken spaces. This was a forbidden area for warriors. Except for gods, no one could survive here unscathed. Dongfang held a gigantic energy ball in each of his hands. The biggest one was more than 1,000 meters in diameter. If it was not for the divine power wrapping around it, preventing it from mixing with the energy of the outside world, if it was someone else, even if it was a divine rancor, without Dongfang Jingshi's control, they would not be able to suppress it and cause a world-destroying explosion. The traitor from the Tower of Babel, the greatest strategist from the Central Divine Hall, was indifferent. He held a ball in each hand with a relaxed expression. He even had the 2 balls of energy spin, one on the left and the other on the right. Under his feet, he floated over, shattering space and time. In the depths of his eyes, there was a hint of pride that could not be concealed. With the fake name of Titan Yu, he had stolen the fanatical power of faith from the warriors of Tong Tian Tower. Even if it was all part of his plan, it was all within his calculations. But after he succeeded, Dongfang couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his heart. As strong as Empress Fei Wenli Zhirua, the Tian Luo Emperor who guarded the entrance to the god's ruins, and the genius Yu clan's 3rd young master Yu Tai Tan, who was rarely seen in 10,000 years, had all fallen under his schemes. Snatching food from the tiger's mouth, on the eve of the enemy's success, using the most ingenious method, using the smartest plan, to push the enemy down from the sky. To make the enemy's foundation fall to pieces, this was called true wisdom. This was called true success. Before this, he did not know that Titan Yu would have such a day. His target was the snake demon Empress Fei Wenli, or the Tian Luo Emperor. But this did not stop him from fine-tuning his plan. After some adjustments, the implementation of this plan was smoother and more perfect than he had imagined. Power of destiny? Who could truly bear the power of destiny? A divine rancor who could control his own destiny was already very impressive. To control the fate of others, especially to shoulder the fate of the entire Tong Tian Tower, let alone that brat Yu Tai Tan, even a true divine sovereign wouldn't dare to talk about success. For the time being, Dongfang did not know how much Yu Yang could endure, nor did he know how many people were bearing the power of destiny for him. He made a simple comparison using the standard of the world deity rank in the upper heaven. At the very least, a 10,000-meter-tall pillar of divine light had to appear in the divine light space of the celestial realm to become a divine supreme. What kind of height was a 10,000-meter-tall pillar of divine light? If it was said that those who were below 1 meter were divine envoys and divine generals, then those who were below 10 meters were already demigods and fake gods. Those who were below 100 meters could be called true gods, but they lacked grimoires or world. True gods that were more than 100 meters tall had all of them. Their grimoire world and so on were all complete. No matter how big or small their ranks were, their realms were all comprehended in eternity. 100 meters to 1,000 meters, this height was already enough for deity rankers to exhaust their lives, years and years to climb. 10,000 meters? That was not something that a deity ranker who was below 10,000 years old could aspire to. Even if it was 10,000 years, 100,000 years, or 100,000 years, there might not be a deity ranker who could reach the height of a 10,000-meter-tall pillar of divine light. Because, even if there was enough time to cultivate, there was still the problem of the limit of one's potential. Even deity rankers could not improve endlessly. Other than those old ghosts that existed in ancient legends, whose names had almost been forgotten by the world, how could there still be any divine supreme? Titan Yu wanted to become a divine supreme, and let the world bear his destiny for him. When Dongfang realized his intentions, his first thought was to laugh out loud. He had seen people who overestimated themselves, but he had never seen someone who overestimated himself to this extent. He was not even a deity ranker, and could not even reach the true God realm, yet he dared to dream of becoming a divine supreme? How many deity rankers in the upper heaven realm could surpass the height of a 100-meter-tall pillar of divine light? Forget about 10,000 meters, even if it was 1,000 meters, one could not be found. Only that fellow Tian Yu could possibly reach it, but he deliberately concealed it. Until now, he still maintained the height of 900 meters from 10,000 years ago. This was already the highest standard in the upper heaven realm. Even someone as diligent as Tian Yu spent tens of thousands of years to reach 900 meters, not even 1,000 meters. Titan Yu, that brat, was probably not even a meter before. He had not even stepped into the false god realm, yet he dared to challenge the 10,000-meter-tall divine supreme. Wasn't he going to make others laugh their heads off? Of course, the ignorant were fearless. Titan Yu dreamed of borrowing the strength of the people in Tong Tian Tower to help him advance to the divine supreme. But he did not think that if this method really worked, then was there no one in the upper heaven realm. Tian Yu, Jin Di, Yao Di, and other deity rankers, which one of them did not have the support of millions of people? Relying on the support of others, relying on others to bear the power of fate for oneself, but oneself did not have enough potential to reach the conditions of the divine supreme, did not form an eternal world, did not have a divine grimoire that could accommodate the laws of creation, did not comprehend the supreme laws of creation, destruction, and eternity, but still wanted to use the power of others to satisfy one's own fantasies. This was undoubtedly a pipe dream. Don't try to deceive my eyes. I have long seen through it. The one who really needs funding is definitely Vivian Li, the conquest queen who is hiding behind the scenes and manipulating everything. However, the world has long forgotten her, and has no choice but to use the name of Titan Yu. Haha, this kind of insignificant skill is really not worth mentioning. Dongfang had already completely figured it out. Titan Yu was impossible. The only possibility was Vivian Li. Even the Tian Luo Emperor, who guarded the entrance of the god's ruins, did not have the qualifications to aspire to the position of the divine supreme. Dongfang reckoned that Queen Vivian Li might have already escaped from the seal, but she had not fully recovered. Therefore, using such a secret method to recover her strength was not to seek the position of the divine supreme, but to borrow power to return to the peak. Haha, we coincidentally have the same idea. The corner of Palace Master Dongfang's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Titan Yu had used the name of the Serpent Empress Fei Wenli to recover her strength and help her return to the peak. Wasn't he also using this to steal the fanatical faith of Tong Tian Tower's warriors and the contract power of millions of war beasts to help Emperor Wu Shuang recover his strength? Now, even if one was a step faster, the battle between the number one ruler of the Demon Abyss, Emperor Wu Shuang, and the Serpent Empress Fei Wenli, who had threatened to conquer the Heaven Realm, was really something to look forward to. The more Dongfang thought about it, the happier he laughed. With the talent to play chess, with heaven and earth as a board and all living things as chess pieces, everything in the world was under his control. What was wisdom? What was a true chess player? This was true wisdom, this was the true chess player of fate. Tong Tian Tower. Tian Luo Palace of the Soaring Dragon Continent. East Heaven King and West Heaven King rushed in like mad dogs and couldn't stop at all. They directly knocked away the guards guarding the door and the maids who were walking halfway. With a gust of wind, they rushed in. They, who were panting like cows, had never been in such a sorry state in their lives. Their bodies seemed to have been run over by hundreds of thousands of bison, covered in mud. Bad, that traitor from the east, he stole. Eastern Sky King rushed down from the 10th floor of Tong Tian Tower in one breath. Even his strong physique couldn't bear it. That's right, the east is stealing our strength. Western Sky King was also anxious. I know you can go back. His Majesty was extremely calm, his heart was as calm as a mirror, and his emotions didn't fluctuate at all. What? Eastern Sky King and Western Sky King were stunned by His Majesty's reaction. What was going on? Since he already knew, why didn't he immediately call out to the people who had fallen into fanaticism? From the 6th to the 10th floor of Tong Tian Tower, there were a large number of people who were bewitched by the East and fell into fanaticism. Even if these people couldn't be awakened, it would be good to wake up the young elites related to Yu Yang, such as the Dragon Knights, Blood Cavalry Guards, and so on. Actually, this is what we intended. There are many people who know Yu Yang, but there are not many people who are really closely related to Yu Yang's fate. Moreover, not everyone is qualified and has the ability to bear his fate for him. It's not a good thing for people who don't have the ability to force themselves to do this. Those of us who can really participate in this great event have our own destiny. In fact, we won't fall into the bewitchment of the East. We don't need to talk about others, just do our best. As long as we, who are connected with Yu Yang's fate, unite, it will be enough to support him to achieve his future, enough to bear the power of fate for him. Maybe the process will be a little longer and more difficult, but the final result will not change. Now there are only two directions of fate, success or failure. There is no third possibility. The appearance of the East, his bewitchment, and his theft are not above the direction of Yu Yang's fate. The East is not the biggest obstacle to Yu Yang's success or failure. The real influence is us. Our will and our support are the key to whether we can break through the obstacles and carry our fate. If we succeed, Yu Yang will succeed. On the contrary, Yu Yang will fail. When His Majesty said this, Eastern Sky King and Western Sky King's mouths were so wide that a thunder mammoth could be stuffed into them. Then what can we do? What should we do? Eastern Sky King was confused. Since the theft of the East's name was also expected, what should they do next? Could it be that they could only watch the East continue to bewitch people like this? Follow the secret method. I have already said it before. His Majesty signaled Eastern Sky King and the Dizzy Duo to get out. Is it okay to ignore the Dragon Knights and the Dragon Blood Guards? Western Sky King couldn't help but ask weakly. In front of His Majesty, he really didn't dare to speak loudly when he was in the wrong. That's none of your business. As long as we can help Yu Yang succeed, let alone them, the whole Tower of Babel will be renewed, and the fate will be completely reversed. How many times do you want me to say it? Go out and do what you should do and what you can do. Don't make a fuss here and let the servants see you as a joke. Look at yourself, do you still look like a king? As soon as His Majesty's anger broke out, East Heaven King and West Heaven King immediately fell silent and left obediently. When they got out of Tian Luo Palace, the two were inexplicably happy again. They winked at each other. Especially Eastern Sky King, the old guy, who was proud. East, you are very smart, but I am not stupid. I knew that my son-in-law would be fine. Didn't you see who was the one who looked at him differently at the beginning? He was the best candidate that I, the Eastern Sky King, who was known as discerning talent, liked. And my little fallen flowers, she must be working very hard to bear the power of fate for her sweetheart. Don't be afraid, I am here. With me, that kid Yu Yang will definitely succeed. Baby, you can rest assured. Western Sky King couldn't stand it. He rolled his eyes. Would it kill him to not boast for a while? Didn't you see who was scared like a dead dog just now? Was it very arrogant to have a son-in-law like Yu Yang? It was true that Yu Yang was very outstanding, but his son wasn't bad either. In the future, he might be able to reach the divine level like Yu Yang. If that was really the case, he would be the father of a divine level ranker. Western Sky King was also very good at fantasy. Although he didn't have a daughter like Fallen Flowers, she had such an excellent son like Prince Tian Luo. He couldn't help but be proud. Chapter 1294. In the Time Corridor. I'm very sorry. I wanted to walk in the Time Corridor with all the distinguished guests and tour the gods' ruins. However, the situation has changed. I need to return to the Tong Tian Tower to fight with my family. Please forgive me for not being able to greet you for the time being. Shui Wuxia gracefully bowed. Before the shadows could react, she had already stepped out of the time corridor of 100 years. She turned into a comet and disappeared into the endless void. Shui Wuxia not only heard Fourth Mother's soul call, but also secretly communicated with His Majesty through divine thought. Now, it was time for her to return to the Heaven's Stairway and officially help Yu Yang. Of course, this would also be the beginning of the planned counterattack. The departure of Shui Wuxia caused a commotion among the suspicious shadows. Before they could react, she had already disappeared without a trace. Even so, out of respect for the strong, the shadows, under the leadership of the boss Songhai, saluted in the direction where Shui Wuxia had left. Even if they did not see her real strength, just by looking at her appearance, she was also in existence on the same level as the divine-level strongmen in the heaven realm. She deserved to be saluted in return. This overlord of the Tong Tian Tower, whose name was Wu Xia, seemed to be only 30 meters tall on the surface. But in fact, she was a super god-level overlord who could kill a god-level assassin in one move. It was just that she had used some kind of secret technique to deeply conceal her own strength, which was why it gave others an illusion. They thought that she was only a height of 30 meters. The shadows communicated secretly and came to a conclusion. Without the strength of the divine-level assassin, it was impossible to kill her in one move. Therefore, another conclusion was that the real strength of this little girl Wu Xia was probably stronger than the boss Songhai, the strongest among the shadows. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dared to come alone and make a neutral agreement with everyone when the enemy was still unknown and she was outnumbered. Perhaps this little girl Wu Xia had just been promoted to the divine level, and she could not fully display her divine power and power. However, this did not mean that the Shadow Clan would do anything rude to her. No matter in the heaven realm, it was still in the heavenly realm. Strength would always be respected. This was the eternal and unchanging absolute truth. What do we do now? Should I continue watching? Or forward? The Green Shadow asked. Forward? No, let's first see what kind of deity-level rankers Tong Tian Tower has produced in these 100 years. This is too much. In just 100 years, the Tong Tian Tower has been born, and the Heaven Realm haven't been able to give birth to a divine-level expert in almost 10,000 years. If we don't figure this out, then we might as well come here for nothing. The dark shadow was stimulated by the two young ladies with shocking potential. Just now, with Wu Xia's introduction, he finally knew that the two newly born Golden Star warriors of the divine level were his little cousin, Inan, and the other was Titan Yu's sister, Yu Bing. The two young ladies named Inan and Yu Bing, although their divine light pillars were not very high, their growth was very fast. 1 second was equivalent to 10 years or even 100 years of growth for others. In the whole world, there was really no one who could grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. Moreover, The golden shadows of the two girls with the same potential were both 300 meters tall. How could Dark Cloud, who only had a potential of 3 meters, endure this? Even Yuan Yi, who had the best potential among the shadows, was only 40 meters tall. It was the biggest blow in his life. It seemed like it was nothing more than this. We are not going to start a war with the Tong Tian Tower. Anyway, we are neutral. Moreover, we have entered the time corridor in the God's ruins. There is no hurry at all. Let's stay here and see clearly. The fiery shadow volcano also agreed. Of course, the one who was stimulated just now was not only Dark Cloud, but also him. Although he was at the God level, his future potential was only 5 meters tall. In his heart, he felt very depressed that his battle power was only 5. If it was not in front of everyone, he would have the urge to hug Dark Cloud and cry bitterly. Among the shadows, he and Dark Cloud were not weak. They were not as good as the strongest, but they were better than the weakest. Yin Ping, Lu Yin, Yuan Yi, Light, and the others were not as good as them. Only Laming and Vast C, the boss, were above them. Who would have thought that when they came here to take a look, their future potential was simply indescribable? Then, let's look at the other few God-level experts. The Sapphire Shadow Vast C made the final decision. When the Shadow Group's divine wills probed the other two dazzling golden stars, a special divine light came toward them. It engulfed the whole space. Vast C and the others were all stunned by the scene that appeared in front of them. These were two godly grimoires. To be precise, they were a physical and an illusory godly grimoire. Other than these, there was nothing else. How could the image of a god-level expert be two godly grimoires? Who was the owner of these two godly grimoires? How could one be a physical and an illusory one? Weren't there supposed to be two god-level experts standing here? Inexplicable, inexplicable no matter how he thought about it. Could it be that the matters of Tong Tian Tower were all so strange? Coming here, he had not seen a single normal thing. It was fine if the abnormal genius Titan Yu was so unfathomable, but his wife and sister were also so talented that it made people go crazy. Furthermore, there did not seem to be any normal people here. The more he looked, the more he realized that the people of Tong Tian Tower were all more mysterious and strange than the other. The image of two godly grimoires here represented two god-level experts. He had never heard of something that could be presented like this. At the very least, it was impossible in the heaven realm. These two god-level experts definitely exist. It's just that for some reason they chose to be invisible and only present themselves like this. The purple shadow Laming tried to analyze. Could it be that these two god-level experts can change the laws of the time corridor? Otherwise, why would they present themselves like this? This doesn't make sense. Volcano was unconvinced. They present themselves like this, why can't they? This is the truth. Laming snorted. It's possible that the power of these two god-level experts far exceeds the scope of our willpower's exploration. We can't see their specific image, this is also a possibility. After Boss Songhai said this, the shadow crowd was speechless. If they, a large group of god-level experts, couldn't see it, then who could? How powerful must they be to be able to cover the eyes of god-level experts? Thinking about it, everyone shuddered at the same time. Alright. They couldn't think too much about things that exceeded their intelligence, otherwise they would be scared out of their wits. Jumping away from these two god-level experts, who were only presented in the image of two godly grimoires, the shadow crowd chose a new target. This gold star was very strange. It was faintly discernible, as if it wasn't a god-level expert. But if it wasn't, there was no reason for it to appear here. The shadow crowd, whose curiosity was about to explode, unanimously chose it as their new observation target. When their divine will was focused on this gold star, a wave of god power attacked their bodies. Similarly, a wave of divine power attacked their bodies. Different from the previous 4 gold stars, which represented the God level. The divine power that was presented now was a very terrifying destructive power. Although it was only an existence form and not a real attack, the shadow crowd still felt frightened, as if their souls were about to be extinguished. Moreover, a kind of divine curse power that could even numb one's bones spread throughout the entire space. In this divine curse space that made one's teeth tremble, a huge statue of a goddess stood in the middle. She had lost her body, but just her head alone was more than 400 meters tall. When the shadow crowd saw this, they were so scared that they almost knelt down, prostrating themselves in worship to this goddess who wanted to destroy the infinite space of the divine curse. Although this great god's body was incomplete, she was definitely not someone they could provoke. In order not to offend the dignity of the great god, the shadow crowd hurriedly bowed and retreated. They didn't even dare to breathe. They retreated out of this terrifying space full of divine curse, getting rid of the destructive erosion of the divine consciousness. In just a few seconds, the shadow crowd felt as if they had narrowly escaped death and were reborn. Although no one knew who this great god was, everyone knew one thing. This was definitely one of the ancient great gods, and the current god level couldn't compare to it. For some unknown reason, this ancient great god chose to integrate with a certain martial artist of Tong Tian Tower, creating the god level that was born in Tong Tian Tower in 100 years. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that this was really a great god with unparalleled power. Don't blame us, we juniors had eyes but didn't recognize the great god. We're sorry for offending you. Genya and Lu Yin still had lingering fears as they saluted that gold star, deeply afraid that their attitude wasn't respectful enough. If this great god is also Titan Yu's right-hand man, then that guy from the east won't have any tears even if he wants to cry. The dark cloud suddenly gloated. Anyway, the east isn't anything good, isn't this just right? Volcano felt that this was very good. Do you want to continue watching? The golden shadow light felt that if they continued watching, if there was an even higher and stronger great god, they might really offend him. Out of self-preservation, he carefully suggested, why don't we wait for that Wu Xia to come and continue watching under her invitation? This way we can maintain the greatest respect for the god level of Tong Tian Tower. Look, that little girl Wu Xia invited us into the time corridor earlier, so she naturally allowed us to watch. It's still necessary to maintain enough respect. I'm saying that we should feel humble when we meet a great god, and not be arrogant and conceited. The purple shadow thunder looked at Big Brother Vast Sea. Then let's continue. Big Brother Vast Sea looked around at his companions and realized that everyone's curiosity could kill a cat. He nodded and decided to continue searching for the truth. The sixth gold star was a god-level expert whose face was hidden in the starlight. It seemed to be a woman. Most of the external images she showed were stars, star palaces, and nebulae. Even if there were other images, they were secretly hidden in the Milky Way. She was a very mysterious god-level expert. Even though she was so mysterious that they couldn't even see the golden light pillar that represented the god-level expert, the shadows still maintained enough respect for her. Because her light pillar of potential was not hidden by the golden shadow. Its height was far above the two little girls named Inan and Yu Bing. It made the shadows feel dizzy just looking at it. Even if everyone's potential was added up, it was probably not even half of this god-level expert hidden in the starlight. Volcano and Dark Cloud were completely speechless. A special product of Tong Tian Tower? It's an abnormal genius. I'm sure it's this. Next was the seventh gold star. The shadows found out that this was the little girl who called herself Wu Xia. It wasn't strange that she was ranked here. What was strange was that the light pillar that represented her god-level expert was actually 390 meters high. Moreover, her potential was even higher than that. The whole light pillar and shadow were estimated to be 800 to 900 meters high. Not to mention the most timid light, Even the most daring volcano, dark cloud, and thunder felt scared to the point of wetting their pants. This little girl Wu Xia had hidden her true strength by 10 times. If everyone had been greedy and fought back then, they would probably all be dead by now. After retreating outside, everyone massaged their hearts for half a minute. Only then did they feel that their heartbeats had slightly returned to normal. The feeling of suffocation caused by the fright had also been reduced a little. No matter how strong a god-level expert that they didn't know was, they wouldn't feel this kind of pressure. After all, this little girl Wu Xia was still talking to everyone politely like a junior, who knew that she had the strength of a legendary god. They should have known earlier. Everyone had to pay their respects to her again and again. When the shadows looked at the 8th gold star again, they realized that their hearts that had almost stopped beating because of the fright had suddenly stopped beating again. There seemed to be a saying in Tong Tian Tower, "There is no most talented person, only more talented people." Now they seemed to understand the meaning of this proverb a little. This was because in front of them, a sea of light appeared. The sea of light was a bright moon in the sky, shining brilliantly. Extraordinary victory. There were 2 god-level experts standing there. One of them was actually a guardian beast with a light pillar that was 300 meters high. The other one was the real god-level expert that held this gold star's godhead. No one in the shadows could see the goddess's light pillar, and no one could see her figure clearly. In less than a second, everyone was expelled from the sea of light by her supreme will. It was impossible for anyone to raise their heads in front of her, and it was even more impossible for them to carefully examine her dignified divine body. They could only vaguely feel that this goddess had the world's most powerful and most intelligent divine eyes. She could instantly see through all things and look down on all living beings. To the shadows who had taken the liberty to come and watch, the supreme will of the Supreme Will exploded almost immediately. All of them were expelled from the Sea of Light. The guardian war beasts were all god-ranked, and the guardian war beast's divine light pillar was 300 meters tall. This kind of existence was simply not something that Shadow and the others could imagine. Everyone, including Boss Songhai, hurriedly bowed to pay their respects, repeatedly saying, "Great God, please forgive us, great God. The great gods here are stronger than the other. Do we really want to continue watching?" The weakest golden shadow was almost scared to tears. "Look, it's better to be scared to death than to die of ignorance." Volcano had already thrown caution to the wind. "I also want to watch." Dark Cloud shivered and expressed his support. "There are so many powerful god-level experts in the secret place of Tong Tian Tower. Is it necessary for us to change our position?" The emerald green shadow suddenly raised this topic that was worth thinking about. Previously, they remained neutral because Tong Tian Tower was unable to fight against the central shrine. But now it seemed that things were not like this. Then it seemed that it was really worth considering to change their neutrality now. In this case, if the 9th god-level expert is also a powerful great god, then we can consider this idea. Boss Songhai also felt that it was time to do something. Although the heaven realm was very safe, some investments might not necessarily be successful. But if they didn't do it, they would definitely regret it for a lifetime. With a kind of explosive curiosity and a complex mentality of uncertainties about the future, with a little desire and a little fear, the shadows cast their collective divine will on the 9th gold star. At first glance, they were all stunned, dumbstruck. Chapter 1295. Heaven's Stairway Level 5, Blood Red Altar. When Tu Wan from the Sky Swallowing Clan arrived, he realized that it took him a few hours to cross the thousands of kilometers. Not to mention a divine level ranker, even a crawling tortoise in the heaven realm that was known for its slow speed would not take this long. Right now, even if Tu Wan didn't use his head to think, just using his toes to think, he could understand this point. That was, he had been fooled. The only question was, Who could fool a divine level ranker? Without a doubt, there was only one answer in the world. Other than a stronger divine level ranker, there was no other possibility. Excuse me, where is the Nine-Head Clan's monster emperor? Although Tu Wan was impulsive and arrogant, he was not retarded. Or perhaps, although he was a little retarded, he wasn't so retarded that he was beyond saving. What Tu Wan needed to do now was not to roar, curse, or provoke a battle against a deity who could fool him without realizing it. He also did not want to launch an attack and beat the Nine-Head Clan's warrior to the ground without distinguishing between right and wrong. What he needed to do was to investigate carefully, not to attack. The Heaven Realm was the same as the Tong Tian Tower. In fact, whether it was the Heaven Realm, or anywhere else in the world, there had never been true peace. The weak were prey to the strong, and the strong were always the foundation and theme of the world. Only those with the strongest strength would have the highest willpower, the greatest decision-making and execution power, and the Heaven Realm was naturally no exception. Although Tu Wan was a famous villain in the Heaven Realm, and the Sky-Swallowing Clan was also a famous fierce clan in the Heaven Realm, it did not mean that he could do whatever he wanted. In the Heaven Realm, there were not many people who could make Tu Wan lower his head and speak softly, but the Nine-Head Clan's Monster Emperor was one of them. Tu Wan had never seen the Monster Emperor before, nor did he have any grudges with the Monster Emperor. However, the Monster Emperor's reputation was so great that even he had to bow his head. Moreover, Tu Wan did not think that there was anything wrong with this. To lower one's head to the strong, to show respect to a stronger divine level ranker, this was the natural law and order of the world, just like how the weak people in the world lowered their heads to him. When the Monster Emperor should appear, he will naturally appear. Those who are wise can see the horizon, but those who are blind can't see him. The Nine-Head Dragon laughed. Since you're here, why don't you sit here quietly for a while? Who knows, there will be more fun later. The Nine-Head Dragon was not interested in the divine level ranker's arrival. On the other hand, the expressions of the Heavenly Dragon Clan's twin-headed dragon Guang, the beautiful Queen's Thousand Bones Biscuit, and the others changed. The arrival of a divine level expert was something they didn't want to see. This meant that the share of the gods' ruins they could obtain would be reduced again. Humph, you are obviously a golden-shelled insect, but you turned into a human and swaggered around. Even if you wanted to embarrass yourself, you wouldn't do it like this. Doesn't look like you are good. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the demonic emperor who was hiding somewhere, Tu Wan would have already attacked them. Logic told him that it was best not to provoke the people from the Eastern Goblin tribe. These people were always known to be difficult to deal with. This is my original appearance. If you have the guts, why don't you return to your original form and take a look? The arrogant man spat on the ground. If he had not been fooled by the Monster King, Tu Wan would have fallen out with him immediately. Killing this arrogant man with a single slap was already a light punishment. If he really got angry, it was not impossible to burn this annoying guy into ashes and use him as fertilizer. Tu Wan felt that he had mastered the art of endurance. At this moment, he was a coward. It was fine. Although he was a divine level ranker, it was normal to be mocked. As long as the Monster King left, it would not be too late to fall out with him. Even if all the people here were added up, he would not be able to kill them with one hand. Tu Wan forcefully suppressed the anger in his chest and looked around. He discovered that other than the Nine-Head Clan, there were also those fellows from the Heavenly Dragon race. It was just that he did not know who had killed a few of them, but they seemed to have died quite miserably. As for the arrogant man, there were 2 Goblin clan leaders beside him. Their strength was SOSO, and they seemed to be afraid of him. They were completely different from the arrogant man. They might not be companions, but just companions. What happened here? Tu Wan felt that he was in a mess. He needed to sort out everything. Inside should be the real Heaven Stairway world. That Titan you might also be hiding inside. His large group of beasts and a group of Tong Tian Tower girls ran in. We will guard here, according to Mr. Dong Fong's agreement. The Heavenly Dragon Clan's double-headed dragon Gu Ong quickly expressed his neutrality. He did not want to offend the Sky-Swallowing Clan, much less a divine-level ranker. He had long heard of Tu Wan's fierce name. Of course, the double-headed dragon Guang was not afraid of Tu Wan in front of him, but the truly powerful divine-level ranker behind Tu Wan. Tian slaughtering god Tu Shi. That man was a powerful existence that supported the entire Sky-Swallowing Clan with his own strength. In the upper realm, Tian Tu and God slaughtered the world. He was on the same level as Dong Fong, Demon Emperor, Jin Di and the unmovable Ji Zun. Only Tian Yu, the supreme of the deities Templar, dared to say that he could truly suppress him. The double-headed dragon Gu Ong secretly guessed that the reason why the Dong Fong Palace master tricked Tu Wan into coming to the Tong Tian Tower was to let the fool be killed by the Tong Tian Tower's rankers in order to incite Tian slaughtering god Tu Shi's anger. Why did the Monster King use a mysterious demonic spell to lose Tu Wan halfway, not letting him meet Titan Yu's beasts? The reason was to protect this guy's life. Among the beasts that rushed into the heaven stairway, there were 2 divine-level rankers. It would not be difficult for them to kill Tu Wan. Therefore, the Monster King did not make a fool out of Tu Wan. It was a form of protection. Of course, the double-headed dragon Gu Ong believed that with Tu Wan's intellect, he would never be able to think of this. The sorrow of a weak intellect. Thinking of this, the double-headed dragon Gu Ong suddenly felt a sense of superiority in his intellect. He also had the urge to laugh out loud. Let's go in and take a look. So what if it's the heaven stairway? Tong Tian Tower is such a rural place, there's no place that we, the heaven realm, cannot enter. If Tu Wan did not give him some face, the invisible Monster King would probably fight his way in without saying a word. Tu Wan himself felt that it was strange to be able to live a low-profile life like this. Could it be that there was an attribute in his body called low profile? We, the 9-headed clan, do not want to break the agreement with the Dong Fong Palace master for the time being. The 9-headed bug shook its head and refused. Gu Ong did not make a sound, but he felt that whether he could enter or not was one thing. Even if he could enter, there were at least 2 divine-level rankers waiting inside. Being beaten to a pulp was a definite outcome. If Dong Fong did not come, if the deity temple's supreme elder Tian Yu did not come, no matter how great the benefits were, he would not enter. Although Tu Wan was a divine-level ranker, his intellect was obviously lacking. The beautiful Queen Thousand Bones Paralysis wanted to get close to this Tu Wan who was obviously lacking in intellect. If a divine-level ranker with strength and stupidity was under her tutelage, how much battle power would he be able to display? However, she also knew that it was easy to fool Tu Wan, but it would be difficult to fool Tu Wan's older brother, Tu Shi, behind him. Therefore, it was best not to do anything that was courting death. Although the temptation of controlling a divine-level ranker was great, no matter how great it was not as great as her own life. She sighed regretfully. It was rare to have such a low-intellect divine-level ranker. This was probably a rare thing that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. It would be a lie to say that she did not feel a little pity if she missed this opportunity. No one responded. Tu Wan felt that he was a failure as a divine-level ranker, and was thinking of doing something to redeem himself. Suddenly, a ray of light came from afar. As if a fairy had descended, a beauty came from the void, treading on the moon, her clothes whiter than snow. As if she could not see the existence of everyone in front of her, she floated down and slowly walked forward under everyone's gaze. She passed through the passageway of the pedestal under the goddess's foot, her beautiful figure was light, and quietly entered the mysterious entrance of the heaven stairway world. Until she disappeared in front of their eyes, no one was able to make any kind of reaction. Divine level, Another divine level ranker. Twin-headed dragon Gu Ong reacted. His first reaction was to wipe off the cold sweat on his forehead. Humph! The Thousand Bones Crispy was very unhappy. She hated people who were prettier than her the most, and that goddess just now could no longer be described as beautiful. That kind of unparalleled beauty, even the most beautiful woman in the upper heaven realm could only sigh when she saw it. Not below that Night Empress Yu. Nine-headed demon made his evaluation again. This little beauty's little face is really too alluring. Tu Wan's saliva almost flowed down 3,000 feet. That's Titan Yu's fiancé, right? Nine-headed dragon asked uncertainly, while Nine-headed worm took out a small booklet and flipped through it, found a picture, and said in shock, "It's true, she's Titan Yu's fiancé Shui Wuxia." Sigh, that's weird, how could she be divine level? Her strength should be that of an innate. The information from the East is too wrong. Is this really information from the East? If it is, then I dare say that the East has really lost a lot of things this time. This battle, TSK, it's really hard to say, haha. Very good, I like this kind of mistake. The arrogant man with a face full of arrogance, what he liked the most in his life was other people making mistakes or being unlucky. Of course, doing bad things was also what he liked. Titan Yu's fiancé? When Tu Wan heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. I don't want the share of God's ruins, I just want that little beauty. Everyone chose to ignore this guy whose brain was filled with lust. Not to mention whether Yu Titan would make a move to beat him into dregs and then chop him into minced meat to feed the dogs, even if it was that Shui Wuxia just now, as a god-level expert, not to mention hiding her strength. Just the small portion of strength that she revealed on the surface was enough to annihilate this lustful guy 100 times over. Twin-headed dragon Gu Ong reckoned that this guy would most likely exist in Tong Tian Tower in the form of dog poop, so he forgave Tu Wan's words and actions. After all, he was a guy with low intelligence, who could ask anything of him. To him, asking for a normal person's request was purposely making things difficult for him. He had heard that Titan Yu had a hobby. He liked to cripple his enemies and then throw them to his dog Grey Wolf as food. Although it had not happened yet, even the arrogant man opposite him seemed to agree with Gu Ang's bold deduction. Since I don't want the share of God's ruins, then the monster emperor should not care about what I do next. I said, I just want that little beauty. If you have an agreement with the East, then continue to guard here. I will go first. I want to capture that little beauty, then return to the heaven realm to hold the wedding. Tu Wan's only worry was the leader of the nine-headed clan, the monster emperor. Since there was no conflict of interest, he believed that the monster emperor would not find trouble with him, so he was free to act. I think the monster emperor should not care about your actions, but are you sure you want to do this? The nine-headed demon frowned and tried to persuade him. The little beauty is too beautiful, I have to get her, as for the rest, I can give up. Tu Wan suddenly realized that he seemed to be a sentimental person, and was a little surprised. If you want to go in and take her, it's not impossible, but you should ask me, right? Someone said. It was unknown when this person came to the blood altar. He might have come together with Shui Wuxia just now, or he might have come when everyone was discussing. No one could figure out what was going on. It was impossible. How could someone come quietly in front of Tu Wan, a god tier? But it happened. Tu Wan looked and found that the person was a man in black. He looked very ordinary. He was not a few meters tall like him. He did not have a body that was shining with golden light, and he did not have any talent, divine power, domain, or other characteristics. He looked like an ordinary mercenary that could be found in the Tong Tian Tower. The only thing that was slightly different from a human was that this man with a thick beard, on both sides of his nose, there were two meaty feelers that humans did not have. He looked very elegant. This bearded man looked a little like the arrogant man. He always felt that this guy was similar to those crazy people who did not know what was good for them, and provoked the whole world, ignoring the consequences. double-headed dragon Gu-ong from the heavenly dragon clan frowned. He could not see the bearded man's strength. On the surface, this bearded man only had the strength of heaven rank. But other than that idiot Tu-wan, no one would believe that the bearded man with the strength of heaven rank could hide from everyone's eyes and quietly come to everyone's side. The nine-headed dragon clan looked at each other. All of them looked very serious. Especially the nine-headed demon. His pupils shrunk quickly. There was a kind of shock, like an undercurrent at the bottom of the sea surging in the depths of his eyes. The arrogant man, who was originally full of arrogance, was now like a tortoise seeing a green bean. He immediately fell in love with this bearded man. The more he looked at this bearded man, the more he liked this bearded man. He wanted to immediately shake hands with this bearded man, hug him, and rub each other's hands, to improve their friendship. "Who are you?" Tu-wan looked at the bearded man with disdain from the corner of his eye, as if he was looking at a bug. Emo Long, the bearded man scratched his head. It was not easy for him to find his name. The nine-headed demon's body shook, but he quickly calmed down, his expression returning to its original indifferent state. The double-headed Guong seemed to have caught on to something. It was as if he had remembered some distant memory, but he could not recall it at the moment. He was a little troubled and a little confused. This name was quite unfamiliar, but he seemed to have heard it somewhere before. "Never heard of it, little bug. Who are you?" Tu-wan did not feel this way at all. In his eyes, heaven rank was synonymous with weaklings. "I think I am the big brother of that girl just now. Ah, to be precise, I should be the big brother of her husband. You idiot, you want to steal my sister-in-law. Don't you need to ask for my permission?" The bearded man carelessly used his fingers to dig into his ears for a while, then casually smeared the stuff on his fingers on Tu-wan's clothes. Go to hell. It was already an unforgivable crime to scold a god-ranker as an idiot, and to even dig out earwax to smear a god-ranker's clothes was an insult that deserved 10,000 death. As for what big brother and little brother, who cared about this **t kinship? The 5-meter-tall Tu-wan raised his thighs angrily, ready to trample this guy who only had the strength of heaven rank to death like a small bug. He had seen arrogant people, but he had never seen someone this arrogant. As a heaven rank warrior, you are not hiding and trembling, but you dare to challenge a god rank? Aren't you a little too daring? You are simply looking for death. Chapter 1296. Tu-wan stomped down heavily. But strangely, he did not feel like he was stepping on solid ground. Instead, his body felt light, and he suddenly rose by half a meter. Tu-wan looked down in shock, and found that the bearded man, who should have been stomped to death like an ant by him, was still alive and well. What was going on? In the eyes of the twin-headed Guong, the beautiful queen of Myriad Bones Biscuit, and the others, they saw in shock. That mystic dragon, whose attitude was 100 times more arrogant than the arrogant man who had a face full of arrogance, merely extended his index finger and stopped the 5-meter-tall divine-level golden giant Tu-wan's absolutely fatal and furious stomp. His movements were so free and at ease that it was as if he was a great painter at the pinnacle who was preparing to pick up his brush and wave it, using his unique inspiration and style to paint a miniature of his own spiritual world in a calm and unhurried manner. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, they would not dare to believe that this was the truth. Just like that, everyone was dumbfounded and stiff for 3 seconds. The world was silent. No one knew what to say in this situation. But the awkward situation was immediately broken. Tu-wan, who had been high and mighty just a moment ago, suddenly fell upside down. With his head down and his feet up, he smashed into the ground outside the blood-colored altar with a thud. Only his 2 big feet could be seen outside the altar with his 4 feet facing the sky. Perhaps he felt that this posture was not very reasonable, or that there was something that could be improved on, but the mystic dragon, who had caused all this, quickly changed his mind. He reached out a hand and casually grabbed Tu Wan's left ankle, pulling this divine-level expert, just like pulling a radish from the ground. He pulled Tu Wan's body out of the soil in front of him. He did not wait for Tu Wan to make any reaction, such as some kind of angry but powerless protest, or actively enjoying his cooperation. Instead, under everyone's gaze, the mystic dragon, the bearded man, stabbed Tu Wan's body back into the soil in a barbaric and wanton manner, without the slightest hint of democracy. Tu Wan, who was waving his hands and feet, seemed to shout something with some reluctance. But it was too fast. None of the people present heard it clearly. Of course, because this was not the main point, everyone ignored it. So tiring. The mystic dragon, the bearded man, seemed to be very satisfied with his hard work in planting carrots. He was usually a lazy person, so it was rare for him to put in the effort to do something. Although he still felt a little regretful about Tu Wan's current posture, thinking that this falling upside down was not the best posture in Tu Wan's life, it was a pity that the current conditions were limited, time was short, and the environment was not very suitable. So, for the time being, he could only make do with it. So, he shook his head and let go of Tu Wan. He clapped his hands habitually and waved his sleeves, not taking away a single speck of dust. He did it with a clear conscience. It was a piece of cake. The twin-headed dragon Guang, myriad bones paralysis, black bear demon, and wild boar demon all had their jaws drop to the ground when they saw this. The arrogant man, whose face was full of arrogance, had a blind fanaticism in his eyes. He was like a devout believer who had suddenly discovered that the true God had descended in front of him. He was extremely excited. The arrogant man had done many amazing actions, and it could be said that he had never kept a low profile in his entire life ever since he was sensible. However, he had never done such an arrogant and awesome act of toying with a god-level expert in the palm of his hand. In fact, he had never even thought of doing such a thing. This kind of cool action was what he needed to learn. The him of the past did not know. 1-to-1. He was really too weak. To senior mystic dragon, whose word for arrogance could only be described with one word. The arrogant man, who had turned into a fan, instantly felt an almost brainless fanaticism in his heart. When Tu Wan, the divine-level expert, crawled out of the mud in a daze, the mystic dragon's actions were not yet finished. He used one of his feet to firmly step on the divine-level expert's face as he sighed, "What a big face!" At the same time, he used his finger to dig in his ear. After he finished digging on the left side, he was still not satisfied. "The resources are not abundant enough, I can't express my sincerity at all." His finger then turned to the right side, and he continued to dig for a long time. Finally, he regretfully stretched out his little finger, and as he sighed, he apologetically smeared it on the tip of Tu Wan's nose. "I'm really sorry, I've been more diligent recently, so I didn't have much in reserve. I'll also contribute." The arrogant man immediately raised his hand. If the resources were not enough, he had more here. He rushed forward with great enthusiasm. He stretched out both his hands, digging left and right, unearthing an extremely abundant amount of resources. He showed them to Tu Wan as if he was showing off. "If it's not enough, I have more here, don't stand on ceremony with me." Tu Wan was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. "What do you mean by holding back internal injuries? What do you mean by vomiting 3 liters of blood, spitting out half and swallowing half?" Now, he finally understood. However, he understood one more thing. If there was someone in this world who could step on him, a divine-level ranker, and he did not even have the strength to struggle, then no matter what the other party did, he could not be too angry. Strength was everything. In a situation where one's skills were inferior to others, shutting up, admitting defeat, surrendering, and acting like a coward were sometimes the best survival skills. Ah, That's not right, Mo Long isn't that? The two-headed dragon Guong suddenly thought of a name that had been sealed for a long time, and his entire body trembled in fear. What did you say? With his reminder, the heads of Myriad Bones Demon and the others finally turned around. Plop! The Black Bear Demon and the Wild Boar Demon were so scared that they simply knelt down. Of course, they were not the only ones who were scared. There was also Tu Wan. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still pitifully being stepped on, he would also want to kneel down like the Black Bear Demon and the Wild Boar Demon and beg for mercy. The name Mo Long was a name that had not been heard in the heaven realm for an unknown number of years. The person Mo Long was also a person that had not appeared in the heaven realm for an unknown number of years. If he suddenly appeared in front of them, if he was not an impostor, then what did it mean? Death? Destruction? Or the collapse of the entire world? Perhaps the situation was not that bad. However, those who understood the existence of this bearded man in front of them did not have a good expression on their faces. No one thought that becoming enemies with this bearded man named Mo Long was a good thing in their lives. On the contrary, they believed that it would be the start of the most terrifying tragedy in the world. Even if it was the central shrine that commanded all in the heaven realm, it would not have a good ending after provoking this malefic star. This kind of terrifying malefic star that should have been sleeping in the eternal seal, why did he come to Tong Tian Tower? Furthermore, from his tone, he seemed to have become that Titan Yu's big brother? Interesting. Looks like coming to Tong Tian Tower was the right choice. Among all the spectators, only the nine-headed demon of the nine-headed clan remained calm. His lips suddenly curled into a mysterious smile. Heaven's Stairway, World Tree. On the millionth step, Yu Yang could feel everyone's support, and his emotions surged. He could not suppress it. He shouted towards the sky. I will definitely be able to control the 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power. Now let me bear it. I, Tong Tian Tower's Yu Yang Titan Yu, will definitely not succumb to fate. My fate is up to me, not the heavens. As if hearing Yu Yang's thoughts, the invisible yet real magical hand suddenly separated a 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power and placed it on Yu Yang's shoulder. Unfortunately, although Yu Yang was full of confidence, his endurance was only a reflection of his body. It had nothing to do with fighting spirit or morale. The 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power. It was placed on his shoulder. Yu Yang's entire person immediately collapsed. He could not stay on the million step at all. Just like Jiao Yu Goddess, his body fell down like a meteor. Jizun could not catch up to him no matter how hard he tried. Not to mention the million step, 500,000, 100,000, even 10,000 steps, Yu Yang could not stay on the 1,000-meter-tall giant of fate's power. He tried his best to persevere, struggle, and do his best to stay on every step he had stayed on for a while longer. But this could only be a wish. He could not even stay on the million step for 1,000th of a second. When he fell to the 500,000 step, he struggled for a while, but he could not stay for more than half a second. He managed to stay on the 100,000 step for a second, but only for a second. He managed to stay on the 10,000 step for a full 10 seconds, but he still could not hold on any longer. His body went limp and he continued to fall. 1,000 steps, 100 steps, 10 steps. In the end, Yu Yang fell back to the starting point of the World Tree's Heaven Stairway, right next to Jiao Yu Goddess. Jizun was still chasing him from afar. She could not come down in time. Yu Yang, who was lying on the ground with his body spread out, realized that the giant of fate in the sky was as tall as a mountain. It was even heavier than Buddha's five-finger mountain on Sun Wukong's shoulders. Not to mention moving, even blinking his eyes was extremely difficult. Only now did he understand that he had underestimated the power of the giant of fate, and also overestimated his endurance. Previously, Jiao Yu Goddess was an extremely powerful god-ranked warrior, Yet she still fell like a meteor while carrying the giant of fate's power at a height of 100 meters. Now that he had carried it for 1,000 meters, it seemed a little too much. But even if he did not want to carry it, he could not go back on his words. Challenging the giant of fate was definitely not easy. Yu Yang decided to grit his teeth and pretend that he was Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong had carried it for 500 years. He could only carry it for 3 days at most. If this was not enough, then he would have transmigrated in vain. Io, isn't this the Yu clan's third young master, who is said to be very arrogant in Tongtian Tower? This posture is really cool. A girl carrying the Hell Tiger Divine sword on her back had appeared out of nowhere. She walked over and looked down at Yu Yang, who was lying on the ground with his arms spread out. It was only now that Yu Yang realized that there was a large group of girls at the starting point of the heaven stairway. All of them were covering their mouths and laughing, as if they were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Yu Yang, whose skin was thicker than the city walls, did not feel the slightest bit embarrassed. Anyway, he had already pushed them down or not pushed them down. Putting on a spread-out posture was equivalent to revising or previewing. It was not a big deal, but because of the angle, Yu Yang could see Tigress's battle dress without any hindrance. In this kind of 90-degree view, which was more than the pure 45-degree view, the benefits were as bright as the little white flower inside the battle dress. Even if Yu Yang had already trained to the super-high realm of form is emptiness, emptiness is form, under this kind of strong visual impact, he still had the illusion that his nose was about to bleed to death. Yu Yang, who looked like a serious gentleman on the surface, was shamelessly like a rock. Even under the high pressure of the power of destiny, his lower body was still like a pillar supporting the sky. He still has a lot of energy left. Looks like adding another 1,000 meters of power of destiny wouldn't be a problem. Impatience, who had a keen intuition in this area, immediately discovered the key point. Her words made Yu Yang sweat profusely. Ha ha! The big and small beauties who were watching couldn't help but laugh out loud. The shadow of death after the Heaven Realm's invasion, the suffocating invisible pressure brought by the rankers in the central shrine like Dongfang, Ji-Zun and Ji-Zun also gradually disappeared amidst the laughter. As long as he was by their side, they would have the confidence to fight against the heavens, against the earth, against everything in the world, including fate. As long as he was by their side. As long as they had the confidence, they would have everything. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.